Chapter 803. Lowly Human. How dare you challenge my 9 brilliance dragon flame tree's prowess? Boom! Asli Fuchin made the first move and severed a branch of the 9 brilliance dragon flame tree. A furious roar echoed. Tianyang, who was following at the back, finally noticed the massive size of the 9 brilliance dragon flame tree. In the extreme distance, the 9 brilliance dragon flame tree was just a huge tree. The tree was so tall that it reached the sky, but it wasn't obvious how big it was. But when they got closer, they realized that the 9 brilliance dragon flame tree was just like a mountain range, and there was no end in sight. When they lifted their heads, apart from the flaming tree crown, they couldn't see anything else. Even the 9-tailed fox race's 9-tailed Saint Mountain couldn't be compared to this. It is just a plant. In the end, it will still be used by us humans. Li Fuchin sneered in response. His long sword released a blinding radiance as he slashed. Earth-tier, peerless martial technique, sword shake wind and cloud. A snow-white sword light slashed out and instantly turned into a massive sword chi storm. It then ruthlessly slashed at the 9 brilliance dragon flame tree. The 9 brilliance dragon flame tree might be massive and powerful, but it was only around the 5th level of Heaven Ascension realm, and its defense was slightly weaker. Now that it was struck by Li Fuchin's sword, it naturally yelled out frantically, "Ah! Damned ant!" The 9 brilliance dragon flame tree was enraged. The flaming tree crown suddenly shot out flaming meteors. It was like a rain of fire that blasted at the ground. Seeing the situation, Li Fuchin's expression changed while the Vajra Bodhi seed yelled out too. These flames are dragon flames. It might not be spirit fire, but it is superior to spirit fire. Don't come in contact with it. Otherwise, these dragon flames are enough to severely injure any expert below the 4th level of Heaven Ascension realm. The Vajra Bodhi seed yelled out. Hearing the statement, the bronze man and Li Fuchin's expression changed. They didn't have a deep understanding of the 9 brilliance dragon flame tree. The Western region Buddhism had been passed down for millions of years and naturally had plenty of knowledge. Right now, whatever the Vajra Bodhi seed said, it was obvious that it was the truth. Master, is he right? In the dark, Ling Yuhan asked with doubt. Was the 9 brilliance dragon flame tree that powerful? 9 truths and 1 lie. Everything else is correct, but the power is exaggerated. What an expert in bewitching people. Tianyang's eyes moved slightly as he said. Such an exaggeration, Li Fuchin and Bronze Man, more or less, will be incomparably fearful, and even because of the escape will be in a hurry. At this time, the Vajra Bodhi bead had the opportunity to amplify the effects of the strange incantation. Even if it was minuscule, it was still something. It is said that the holy land of Buddhism in the Western region, the Outer Thunder Temple, although it does not prohibit outsiders from entering, very few people dare to go there. If they enter, they will automatically convert to Buddhism. It seems that this is the magnification of this strange incantation. Tianyang said. At this time, some of the dragon flame meteors that weren't aimed at the 3 of them also shot towards Tianyang. Tianyang's expression did not change. He stretched out his hand, and the true flames of destruction whizzed out and swallowed it easily. The Navagraha dragon flame tree was taken aback. Did something not feel right just now? But the flaming meteors had already finished erupting. The Vajra Bodhi bead, Bronze Man, and Bronze Man had made their moves again, preventing the Navagraha dragon flame tree from paying attention to the other side. Bronze Divine Fist. A rough and violent yell burst out from Bronze Man's mouth. Immediately after, a surge of bronze-colored chi energy was released. Everything had a spirit. Even the stone race could awaken their spirit. Bronze, as a material for forging spirit weapons, naturally had a spirit too, but because it was easier to awaken the spirit, it was inferior to the stone race. But Bronze Man was also a formidable expert. You're just a material for smithing, and you dare to be impudent in front of my dragon flame tree. The Navagraha dragon flame tree snorted and brandished its branches, releasing a torrential dragon flame. Seeing the situation, Bronze Man's expression changed greatly. As a bronze, he was most afraid of being burned by flames. Heaven tier low-grade martial technique, Sword Saint Sky ruling. At this moment, Li Fuchen took the opportunity and immediately roared out while his chi energy surged out. The high-grade spirit artifact, sword in his hand, released a blinding radiance. Behind him, the ancient Sword Saint's image condensed. Sword Saint Ancestor, please bestow me the power of a sword. Li Fuchen yelled out, and a small golden sword suddenly flew out from his chest and fused into the longsword in his hand. A tyrannical prowess burst out, and even the Vajra Bodhi seed revealed a shocked expression. Sword Saint power? Damn it, you actually have the Sword Saint power. The Navagraha dragon flame tree yelled out in disbelief and sent Bronze Man flying with a single move. Immediately after, Bronze Man channeled all his chi energy and surged it at Li Fuchen like a tide. That was the Sword Saint power. It was above emperors and was only inferior to emperors. An era and a Dao could only have one emperor. During the Tianji Sword Emperor's era, Tianyang broke through the Sword Dao extremity and was given the title of Tianji Sword Emperor. As for Zhou Xing, his Sword Dao cultivation wasn't inferior to the Tianji Sword Emperor, so he could only be given the title of Sword Saint. Right now, Li Fuchen was executing the Sword Saint power. It was an all-out attack from an ancient Sword Saint. Ha ha! Are you afraid now? My Sword Saint sex Sword Saint ancestor isn't something a freak like you can imagine. Sword Saint ruling sky. Li Fuchen laughed heartily and slashed with the sword that was condensed with the Sword Saint power. A horrific sword light that was at the peak of the 7th level of connecting heaven realm instantly drew in the surrounding spatial zone. There was even a spatial vacuum in the surroundings. No! The Navagraha dragon flame tree yelled out and quickly released all his dragon flames in an attempt to block this sword. Boom! There was a deafening explosion that caused the heaven and earth within 10,000 miles to tremble violently. Li Fuchen vomited fresh blood, and his sword dimmed down. After forcefully executing the Sword Saint power, Li Fuchen was also severely injured. However, Li Fuchen didn't have any negative thoughts. He pointed at the Navagraha dragon flame tree and yelled out, "Hurry, Vajra Bodhi seed! Kill the Navagraha dragon flame tree!" The Navagraha dragon flame tree was an extreme Yang divine tree after all, and had extremely tenacious vitality. It might have been struck by the Sword Saint power, but it didn't die. Seeing the situation, the Vajra Bodhi seed revealed a smile. "Don't worry, brotherly. I will live on with your share," the Vajra Bodhi seed said. Hearing the statement, Li Fuchen's expression instantly changed. "Vajra Bodhi seed, what did you say?" But at this moment, the Vajra Bodhi seed's left hand had already penetrated Li Fuchen's heart from the back. Li Fuchen's expression instantly distorted, and his hazy eyes instantly regained clarity. After vomiting a mouthful of fresh blood, Li Fuchen turned around and yelled out, "You used a Buddhist forbidden incantation. Guhart Sutra, PFFF. The Vajra Bodhi seed pulled out his hand and looked coldly at Li Fuchen, who died with his eyes wide open and chuckled. "Forbidden incantation? I'm already the ruler of Buddhism. What forbidden incantation can I use? A material that can cultivate to the peak of the 4th level of connecting heaven realm and an entire Navagraha dragon flame tree. I have truly profited." The Vajra Bodhi seed laughed heartily. But at this moment, a laughter echoed from the back. A sharp sword tip pierced through his chest and came out from his chest. Chapter 804. Who goes there? The Vajra Bodhi seed yelled out and had a gloomy expression as it formed seals with both hands. In an instant, it vanished from a spot and was pierced by Tianyang. It was just a human-shaped puppet. It actually knows the substitution technique. Tianyang was rather surprised, as he didn't expect for this Buddhist monk to be so knowledgeable. You are Tianyang." However, the Vajra Bodhi seed didn't bother about Tianyang's exclamation. It stared at Tianyang and used a tone of disbelief to roar out. "The former sword monarch, the current beast overlord, the greatest enemy of the Western region Buddhists, Tianyong. First, he killed the young Buddha, then the wisdom monarch. Today, the Vajrabodhi seed nearly died in his hands. The Vajrabodhi seed didn't know the substitution technique and was only able to replace its body because it used an artifact talisman from an ancient ruin, the substitution talisman. When thinking about this, the Vajrabodhi seed felt the pain in its heart. That was an ancient talisman that couldn't be exchanged for even a few 100 million Reiki. In the next second, this trace of pain turned into killing intent when it saw Tianyong. You didn't just dare to be so arrogant on the first and second floor. Now that you are at the true stage of the experts, you actually dare to treat this seed like this. It seems like the name of the beast overlord has blinded your mind. Right now, let this generation's beast overlord fall in this seed's hands. The Vajrabodhi seed yelled out, and in the next moment, there was a burst of Buddha light that burst out from his body. The valiant power of the peak state of fourth-level heaven ascension realm was enough to crush everything in the surroundings. When the 9 brilliance dragon flame tree that was severely injured by Li Fuchen's sword saint power felt the prowess, it almost collapsed. He was almost crushed to death by the pressure. Although he managed to survive, his life force had also dissipated by quite a bit. Go to hell! The Vajrabodhi seed yelled out, and there was a flash of Buddha light. The Vajrabodhi seed instantly vanished on the spot. Boom! Tianyong didn't even frown as he slammed his left hand behind him. The Vajrabodhi seed's palm clashed with Tianyong's left hand. He actually sensed my presence. Seeing that Tianyong's left hand was completely unharmed after blocking its attack, the Vajrabodhi seed was shocked. Although what he cultivated was not the Akala's body of wisdom, it was still a Buddhist half-step heaven-rank body refinement technique, the Vajra glazed body. The Vajrabodhi seed had been cultivating the Vajra glass body since he was young. He had used countless natural treasures to cleanse his body of all impurities. Coupled with countless fortuitous encounters and life-and-death battles, the Vajrabodhi seed was able to forge a body that was not the slightest bit inferior to a peak heavenly completion stage 5th level cultivator, even though his cultivation base was only at the peak of heavenly completion stage 4th level. However, in the collision just now, Tianyong had easily blocked his sudden attack. This caused the Vajrabodhi seed, apart from feeling astonished, to feel a strong sense of greed. Tianyong's cultivation was much lower than his, but his physical strength did not seem to be inferior to his own. Then, he must have a powerful body-refining treasure on him. Otherwise, he must have a body refinement technique that was even higher tier than the Vajra glazed body. Natural treasures belong to the virtuous. Tianyong, you are plagued by the sins of slaughter and have endless negative karma. You are about to fall into the 18 levels of hell. Hurry up and surrender yourself. Convert to my Buddha and return to clarity in your next life. The Vajrabodhi seed roared and chanted scriptures while radiating with Buddha light. Strange incantations appeared around the Vajrabodhi seed's body. When dealing with Li Fuchen and the Bronze Man, the Vajrabodhi seed had used it secretly. Now that it was clashing with Tianyong, the Vajrabodhi seed naturally didn't hold back anymore. Once it was activated, it was the complete version of the Buddhist sect's forbidden spell, the Guhart Sutra. The Western region Buddhist sect was originally a sect that would do anything for their own cultivation. Why was the Guhart Sutra listed as a forbidden spell? Because the Guhart Sutra could not only forcefully control the mind of others and bewitch them, it could also brainwash them. If it was used properly, it would be fine. If it was used improperly, if it wasn't used properly, then when brainwashing the user, there was a great chance that the user would be brainwashed into an idiot. There were thousands of people who cultivated the Guhart Sutra, but there were only a few that could avoid the backlash. Coincidentally, the Vajrabodhi seed was one of them. Convert to Buddha, hand over the treasure, cleanse your sins. A voice that didn't sound like a human's voice was emitted from the Vajrabodhi seed's mouth. It was accompanied by spirit soul power that carried the power of bewitchment and attacked Tianyong. The spirit soul power blasted at Tianyong's brain. Far away, half of the bronze man's body was melted by the 9 brilliance dragon flame trees' dragon flames. When he heard the voice, his expression changed drastically. It is the Guhart Sutra. Damn it, the Buddhist sect actually went back on the agreement and took out this. Nothing must happen to that kid, the bronze man said anxiously. He then circulated his chi energy and wanted to forcefully restore his body. Tianyang let out a cold sneer. I was wondering what kind of method it was. So it is just spirit soul power. When it comes to spirit soul power, even the creator of the Guhart Sutra has to call me ancestor. Tianyang roared. In the next instant, the spirit soul power of the Guhart Sutra seemed to have collided with a mirror that specialized in reflecting spirit soul power. It was all reflected back. Moreover, with Tianyang's enhancement, it was much stronger than the Guhart Sutra that the Vajrabodhi seed had used earlier. The Vajrabodhi seed's pupils shrank rapidly to the size of needles. It howled, "How is this possible? How can my Vajrabodhi seed be affected?" Backlash. Boom. The Guhart Sutra viciously slammed into the Vajrabodhi seed's spiritual sea. Even though the Vajrabodhi seed had already used all its strength to form a spiritual defense in front of Tianyang's Wuzun realm spirit soul power, it was still as weak as paper. Tianyang indeed couldn't use Wuzun realm spirit soul power too much. After using it to insta-kill the 3 Shadow Mouse brothers, he wouldn't be able to use it again for a short period of time. However, when others came to attack him, giving them a taste of their own medicine was an exception. Tianyang instantly enhanced the Guhart Sutra. Reflection. As a result, the Vajrabodhi seed's spiritual sea was struck by its own attack. Streams of bewitching energy broke through the Vajrabodhi seed's defenses and wreaked havoc in its spiritual sea. The Vajrabodhi seed also let out a terrifying scream. This was the backlash of the Guhart Sutra, and also the reason why it was classified as a forbidden spell. If the Vajrabodhi seed couldn't endure it, then it would suffer the same backlash as the countless others in the history of Buddhism in the Western regions who had used the Guhart Sutra. It would become an idiot who only knew how to drool. Namo Amitba. If you knew this would happen, why did you do it in the first place? At this moment, a Buddhist light far more resplendent than the Vajrabodhi seed's spiritual sea exploded. A figure that was as tall as a mountain slowly appeared. Seeing this, Tianyang's face instantly turned extremely grave. I didn't expect that in this bald donkey's head. There's actually another, Tianyang said slowly. At this moment, the illusory figure also took shape. The Power of Buddha. Chapter 805. The Power of Buddha. The Western region's Buddhist sect had been passed down for millions of years, and they believed in the legendary Gautama Buddha. It was said that when the Gautama Buddha was born, he pointed to the heavens and pointed to hell while chanting ancient scriptures. When he was young, he comprehended the Tao under the Bodhi tree and established the current Western region's Buddhist sect. His innate talent was also considered the pinnacle of the heaven continent. At the age of 321, he ascended to the pinnacle of the world and became the strongest expert at the end of the ancient era. The Western region's Buddhist sect under him had also expanded to the extreme and became the strongest faction at that time. Even until today, they were still a member of the martial Tao sacred grounds. Most importantly, the Gautama Buddha wasn't a person of this world and was a clone of a powerful expert from another region. Therefore, the Western region's Buddhist sect's Great Thunderclap Monastery would often have the power of Buddha. However, Tianyang didn't expect the Vajrabodhi seed actually had the power of Buddha. Namo Amitba, the Buddha's shadow, chanted again and released rays of Buddha light that enveloped Tianyang's body. Seeing the situation, Tianyang let out a breath of relief. It was fortunate that this power of Buddha wasn't the power of Buddha that the Western region's Buddhist sect had been worshipping for generations. At most, it was just a simulation of the power of Buddha created by the current Buddhist sect master. Its true power was far from that of the Buddhists. If it was the true power of Buddha, Tianyang wouldn't hesitate and would immediately activate the power of Shintian Wuzuan. After all, The invincible Buddha that dominated the entire era at the end of the ancient era was just a clone of an even more powerful individual. It was hard to imagine how powerful the power of Buddha left behind by such an individual would be. As for now, it seems like most of these major factions have their own life-preserving items. Previously, Li Fuqin had the power of a sword saint, but this Vajra Bodhi seed seems to have the power of Buddha. Tianyang muttered to himself, while the murderous intent in his eyes was getting more intense. The enmity between him and the Buddhists of the Western region had only started because he had killed a few disciples. However, it was the Bodhisattva of the Western region who sought his own death and insisted on attacking Tianyang. That was why the grudge between them had intensified. Now they would not rest until one of them was dead. He didn't think that the Vajra Bodhi seed would be immediately grateful if he let it go. Therefore, Sky Extreme Sword Art, First Sword, Soaring Heavens. Tianyang snorted coldly. His figure disappeared in an instant. His true essence at the peak of the half-reaching heaven state gushed out. The great void sword embryo in his hand was shining with tens of thousands of thunderbolts. As soon as the sword was drawn, a sword light that seemed sharp enough to tear the world apart burst out. You actually dare to attack me after seeing my Buddha's power? Seeing this, the Vajra Bodhi sneered. The ignorant are indeed fearless. Amitabha, I ask Buddha to send down your power and suppress this demon. The Vajra Bodhi seed chanted Buddhist scriptures as its body rose automatically. The Buddha's shadow above its head also became more and more solid. A Buddhist light bloomed. The Buddha's shadow raised its hand and turned into a giant five-fingered mountain, crushing down on Tianyang. Five-fingered mountain, suppress all things. The Vajra Bodhi seed roared. The five-fingered mountain and soaring heavens sword collided fiercely. Boom! A series of spatial ripples appeared between heaven and earth, sweeping up the surrounding heaven and earth's spiritual chi. The terrifying spatial cracks seemed to want to tear everything in the surroundings to shreds. The bronze man's expression changed drastically. He couldn't care less about Tianyang and hurriedly urged his body to flee. That was the Buddha's power released by the Vajra Bodhi seed. Even if he was at his peak, he might not be able to withstand it, let alone Tianyang, who was only at the peak of the half-reaching heaven state. Bang! The five-fingered mountain released tens of thousands of Buddhist light. Soaring heavens sword shattered with a loud bang, turning into light dust that filled the sky. Ha ha ha! How can the Buddha's power be offended by a rascal like you? Now, give me your life. The Vajra Bodhi seed laughed loudly. He knew that the Western region Buddhist sect had a sky-high reward for Tianyang. If he could take Tianyang's head in the tomb of the Dragon Emperor, then when he returned to the Western region Buddhist sect, he might be able to rely on the reward to take that step into the fifth level of the heavenly completion realm. At that time, there would be a place for him at the top of the pyramid of the mainland. As expected, even if it's a fake Buddha's power, it's not an ordinary thing. It's tainted with a trace of the real Buddha's power. Tianyang's expression froze slightly as he looked at the five-fingered mountain pressing down on him, muttering to himself in his heart. The collision just now was only Tianyang's first test, and the result of the test surprised Tianyang. The Buddha's cultivation at the end of the ancient era had definitely surpassed Wu Zun's. Perhaps he was also a terrifying existence among the Saint Realm elites. However, the corners of Tianyang's mouth curled up into a smile. If the real Buddha's power came in person, I might be a little afraid. But a fake? The martial soul power in the sea of spirit surged. In the next moment, a long sword shining with 9 colors of Xinguang appeared in Tianyang's hand. It merged with the great void sword embryo. The billowing devouring power was released. Martial soul talent, sky devouring. Tianyang shouted, and the devouring power belonging to the sky devouring secret skill burst out to the limit in an instant. Although there was no demon chi in the tomb of the Dragon Emperor, the abundant spiritual chi of heaven and earth and dragon chi were also nourishment for the sky-devouring secret skill. In addition, The fake Buddha's power was tainted with a trace of the Saint Realm Almighty's aura. The enormous and terrifying energy poured into Tianyang's body and became a part of the endless spirit sea. Boom! A terrifying loud sound exploded in Tianyang's body. The five-fingered mountain, formed by the Buddha's power, also paused for a moment. In the next moment, the Vajra Bodhi seed's pupils contracted, and it looked at Tianyang in disbelief. This is impossible. Reaching Heaven Realm LV1. Peak Heaven Realm LV1. Reaching Heaven Realm LV2. Peak Heaven Realm LV2. Reaching Heaven Realm LV3. Peak Heaven Realm LV3. In the next moment, Tianyang violently broke through the realm. Lightning flashed around him, and the long sword in his hand released a huge Xinguang. Just a second ago, it was only a half step to Heaven Realm LV1, and it could be crushed easily. But in the next second, it had become a LV3 Heavenly Realm LV1, which was only a small realm lower than it. Damn it, a lowly northern wilderness region commoner dares to have such a powerful secret skill. In the next moment, the Vajra Bodhi seed suddenly reacted, and its face was filled with jealousy. It roared and punched out. Vajra Bodhi palm. The powerful palm print supported the five-fingered mountain, and the five-finger mountain also released a huge amount of Buddha's light and an extremely terrifying pressure. The Buddha's shadow chanted Buddha's name, and streams of purifying energy were released, as if it wanted to forcibly control one's spirit. The five-fingered mountain didn't just suppress one's physical body, it also suppressed one's soul. However, soul suppression? Physical suppression? Tianyang held the long sword in his hand, raised his head slightly, and said calmly, "Give me a sword, and I'll break it." A sword struck out. Sky Extreme Sword Technique, Final Sword Sky Extreme. Chapter 806. The Celestial Sword Technique was named after the celestial pole. The strongest sword was the celestial pole. Boom! A sword light that seemed to not belong to this world burst out from Tianyang's great void sword embryo. The power of the heavenly sword was injected into this sword. In his previous life, the Tianji Sword Emperor wielded the heavenly sword to slash the celestial pole. He was invincible throughout the heavenly continent and ascended to the throne. Today, Tianyang wielded the heavenly sword again and used the power of the celestial pole to fight against the power of the Buddha. How is this possible? How is this possible? Under the terrifying pressure of the celestial pole, the five-fingered mountain no longer moved forward. Instead, it started to tremble as if it was suppressed by something. Cracks began to appear on the five-fingered mountain and began to spread. Before the sword arrived, the enemy had already collapsed. This is the power of the Buddha, created by the Buddha himself. How can it collapse? The Vajra Bodhi seed shouted in disbelief. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression did not change. However, his body was drained of a lot of true core. The final sword of the Celestial Pole Sword Technique combined the power of all the previous moves of the Celestial Pole Sword Technique. The power of this sword was greater than all the previous moves combined. Similarly, the consumption of true core was extremely terrifying. Even with Tianyang's true core storage, it was almost depleted. However, the effect was extraordinary. Boom! The speed of the celestial sword wasn't considered fast, but how could the five-fingered mountain, which had already been confined, have the strength to dodge this sword? Cracks spread across the entire five-fingered mountain, and at the moment when the sky sword arrived, the entire mountain was covered in cracks. Boom! The extremely terrifying pressure of the way of the sword exploded. Combined with the power of the Buddha, the five-fingered mountain of the Vajra Bodhi palm suddenly exploded. At this moment, the Vajra Bodhi seed also spat out blood. He was severely injured by the backlash of the move. This is impossible. How can a worthless northern wilderness region, lowly person shatter the power of the Buddha? It must be an illusion. It must be an illusion. The Vajra Bodhi seed roared. In the next moment, the power of the martial soul exploded from the Vajra Bodhi seed. In the next moment, blood-red flames covered the Vajra Bodhi seed's body. The Vajrabodhi seed's eyes were instantly replaced by madness. The light of Buddha disappeared. Light was replaced by a monstrous demonic flame. This is... Tianyang's eyes narrowed. Heaven-grade martial soul. Demonic fire Buddha bone body? That's right. The Vajrabodhi seed opened its mouth, a trace of disdain in its crazed eyes. The Buddha bone won't do. Now it's up to my demonic flames. I Bodhi Buddha, 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 Bodhi Buddha. The demonic flame Bodhi seeds, Bodhi, flames body Bodhi Buddha. Vajra body Bodhi Buddha Bodhi. Instantly. However, since you dare to beat my Bodhi flesh to such a state, even if I don't like your Bodhi flesh, I still have to kill you. The demonic Ong Bodhi flame Buddha, oh Buddha, Buddha, Bodhi Deva. Seeing this, Tianyang's eyes flashed with a strange light. The demonic fire Buddha bone body was one of the few special heaven-ranked martial souls that Tianyang knew of. The person who possessed this martial spirit must be a Buddhist. At the same time, he must have two personalities. In the past, Tianyang had heard from Long Taiji that there was a Buddhist in the western region who possessed a strange and terrifying heaven-stage martial spirit, like the devil fire Buddha bone body. The Vajra Bodhi seed he faced today was the owner of the devil fire Buddha bone body. Demonic fire. Although it's not the demonic fire of the outer world demons, the Tian Shao sword should like it quite a bit. Furthermore, it has the power of a heaven-ranked martial spirit. Tianyang licked his lips, revealing a trace of excitement. Previously, when he made a breakthrough in the nine-tailed sacred mountain, the Sky Cloud sword had only reached the pinnacle of Heaven Tier. It was still a distance away from Heaven Tier High Tier. However, if he could devour a strange and powerful martial soul like the demonic fire Buddha bone body, this distance would be greatly reduced. Haha, die for me. Demonic fire sky burning fist. At this moment, a sharp roar sounded from behind Tianyang. A fist burning with raging demonic fire shattered the void and headed straight for Tianyang's head. The demonic fire burned. Although it wasn't spiritual fire, it released a power that wasn't any weaker than spiritual fire. The Vajra Bodhi seed, which was surrounded by demonic fire, also revealed a trace of pride. So what if the Buddha bone body was defeated by Tianyang? Tianyang definitely wouldn't have thought of its demonic fire body. Even if the demonic fire body came out, the Buddha bone body would be severely damaged, and it might be difficult for its Buddhist cultivation to improve for 100 years. However, to be able to obtain the Navagraha dragon flame tree and kill Tianyang, the #1 enemy of the Western region Buddhists, it was worth it. Not bad, not bad. The closer I get, the more delicious it is. At this moment, Tianyang suddenly spoke. His words confused the Vajra Bodhi seed, and the expression on its face became even more ferocious. You're about to die, yet you're speaking incoherently? At this moment, Tianyang's left hand, which was hidden in his sleeve, suddenly struck out. A seal that released the terrifying power of the ancient blood wilderness and was as mysterious as a divine ability suddenly appeared in front of the Vajra Bodhi seed's eyes. I originally thought that I wouldn't have to use this move. Just the heaven's fate alone would be enough to kill you. I didn't expect you to have schizophrenia as well. Tianyang smiled faintly. At this moment, the seal that released the power of the ancient blood wilderness expanded rapidly with the infusion of true essence. A second before the demonic fire sky burning fist arrived, it expanded to almost 10,000 feet. Primordial mystique, primordial blood wilderness seal. Tianyang smiled faintly and pushed out with both hands. The primordial blood wilderness seal suddenly erupted with a dazzling blood-colored light, and the surrounding demonic fire instantly exploded. The boundless demonic flames turned into clouds and disappeared. As for the main body's demonic flame, burning heaven fist, it was still burning. The primordial blood wilderness seal instantly blasted it apart. The aftermath fiercely bombarded the Vajra Bodhi seed's chest. The blood-red light was released, the demonic fire disappeared, and so did the Buddha bone. The power of the martial spirit had been completely devoured by Tianyang. What have you done? The Vajra Bodhi seed roared in disbelief as the power of the martial spirit disappeared, and it instantly returned to its original appearance. However, only a few words responded to it. A dead person doesn't need to know. Boom! The primordial blood wilderness seal erupted and swallowed the Vajra Bodhi seed in an instant. Then, the Vajra Bodhi seed's aura and soul completely disappeared from this world. Bang! The primordial blood wilderness seal disappeared, and a half-black and half-white bone object fell to the ground. Tianyang glanced at it and raised his eyebrows slightly, but he was too lazy to pick it up. The Sarira of the demonic fire Buddha bone body. The power of the martial spirit has disappeared. I can't even look at this thing. It's really a tragedy that it didn't break through to the upper heaven rank. Then Tianyang pushed out his palm. A strong wind flew out. The black and white Sarira drifted with the wind. At this moment, Tianyang took a few steps forward and came to the side of the collapsed Navagraha dragon flame tree, which seemed to have been killed by the aftermath. He patted the tree trunk with his palm. Chapter 807. Brother Tree, does it feel good to pretend to be dead? Tianyang patted on the tree trunk and smiled. As soon as Tianyang finished speaking, he noticed that the tree trunk had waves of goosebumps. The 9 Brilliance Dragon Flame tree's lifeless tree trunk had also gradually regained some vitality. However, due to Li Fuchin's Sword Saint power being overly powerful, even if the 9 Brilliance Dragon Flame tree wasn't dead, it couldn't do anything. This was also the reason why Tianyang dared to run to the 9 Brilliance Dragon Flame tree so casually. How did you discover me? A weak and ancient voice echoed. I'm a tree, and I am proficient in the art of disguise. Even if an emperor descends, he wouldn't be able to discover that I am pretending to be dead. In response, Tianyang instantly grinned. I guessed it. The 9 Brilliance Dragon Flame tree. Tianyang naturally wouldn't be guessing. The 9 Brilliance Dragon Flame tree's disguise was indeed flawless. Trees had their own unique understanding of life. It was even more so for the 9 Brilliance Dragon Flame tree that had lived for countless years like the extreme Yang Divine tree. Just as the 9 Brilliance Dragon Flame tree thought, if he was pretending to be dead, even an emperor wouldn't be able to discover him. But Tianyang's spirit's soul power wasn't just at the emperor's level. For the 9 Brilliance Dragon Flame tree that had only seen emperors, it naturally wouldn't be able to imagine that there was an existence that was far beyond the great emperor's level. However, it doesn't matter if you guessed it or not. If you want to seize this tree, you're still thinking too much. Even if I am severely injured by the Sword Saint power, I will at most be unable to fight. If I want to self-destruct, I can do so. The 9 Brilliance Dragon Flame tree spoke again, and its voice was filled with disdain. How can a mere human be this tree's owner? Back then, the true martial dragon emperor had to persuade him in order to recruit me. Let alone you. No matter how powerful you are still miles away from the true martial dragon emperor. Take my Navagraha flame dragon fruit and leave. I will never submit to you. The Navagraha dragon flame tree said unyieldingly. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a slight smile. If I leave you here to fend for yourself, you might be able to survive. However, it's hard to say how many people will discover this place and this dying divine yang tree. Tianyang chuckled. Hearing this, the Navagraha dragon flame tree trembled slightly, then said firmly, "This tree is the divine yang tree of the primordial age. I have lived for countless years and have lived long enough. Are you afraid of death? Maybe the tree trunk will even be refined into a useless club. So what? After this tree dies, who cares if there's a flood? There's also no way for me to witness an existence above Emperor. I've lived for countless years. What haven't I seen? Isn't it just above the Emperor realm, above the Emperor realm?" Tianyang said one sentence after another, but the Navagraha dragon flame tree still stubbornly refused. However, when Tianyang said the last sentence, the Navagraha dragon flame tree could no longer hold back. Above the Emperor realm, the true martial dragon emperor had chased after his entire life. Even in death, he had only touched the threshold. Even in the primordial age of Heaven Continent, that level of existence was only a legend. As the divine Yang tree, the Navagraha dragon flame tree also had the potential to become above the Emperor realm. However, it had never succeeded in its entire life. This made the Navagraha dragon flame tree extremely sullen. Now that it heard Tianyang say those 4 words, it was naturally excited. However, after the excitement, the Navagraha dragon flame tree suddenly laughed coldly and calmed down. Humph, who doesn't know how to say those 4 words? Your talent is not bad. Perhaps you're stronger than the true martial dragon emperor. However, it's not that easy to become above the emperor realm. Wu Zun, Tianyang said calmly. The Navagraha dragon flame tree shuddered. Its firm tone suddenly softened. It's useless even if you know the slightest bit of information. I've seen countless similar information. Soul condense primordial spirit. Tianyang said again. However, hearing those 4 words, the Navagraha dragon flame tree's enormous body trembled violently. Wisps of powerful dragon flames splashed out of the Navagraha dragon flame tree and landed on the ground, causing a series of moderate fires. Tianyang stood calmly on the spot. The true flames of destruction rose and devoured the dragon flames easily. Why was the Navagraha dragon flame tree suddenly so excited? Because the true martial dragon emperor had spent his entire life to find the path to Wu Zun, and it was these 4 words. Martial honor was the materialization of one's soul into a primordial spirit and the foundation of the divine path. How had Tianyang comprehended the saint path before reaching the heaven ascension realm? Apart from his strong foundation, he had also formed a nascent spirit early in the primordial spirit when he was at the primordial transformation realm. This nascent spirit grew rapidly as Tianyang's cultivation increased. Now, although it had not completely transformed into a nascent spirit, Tianyang's soul's endurance far surpassed that of an ordinary heaven ascension realm cultivator. Only then could he withstand the power of the saint path. However, in the Navagraha dragon flame tree's eyes, Tianyang was only a young man in his 20s. How could he say the 4 words that had completed the path to Wu Zun? Who are you? The Navagraha dragon flame tree said, trembling. However, Tianyang did not answer directly. Instead, he released his Wu Zun realm's soul power. Boom! Instantly, even with the Navagraha dragon flame tree's terrifying soul power, it felt as if it was suppressed to the lowest point by a godlike pressure. If the Navagraha dragon flame tree had eyes, its pupils would have shrunk to the size of a needle. Even when the true martial dragon emperor was alive, he could not exert such great pressure on its soul. This is... The Navagraha dragon flame tree said hoarsely. The Navagraha dragon fire tree's voice was hoarse. At this moment, Heavenly Sun waved his hand. The scene of the Earth Emperor's spiritual herb garden appeared before the Navagraha dragon flame tree. That is, the Navagraha dragon flame tree could not care less about its previous shock. Looking at the Earth Emperor's spiritual herb garden, it was stunned. The infant soul fruit tree is not inferior to your divine tree. Although its cultivation is weaker, it is tens of billions of years older than you. Tianyang chuckled. This sentence was like a sharp blade that completely penetrated the Navagraha dragon flame tree's increasingly weak defenses. It was the last straw that broke the camel's back. Instantly, the Navagraha dragon flame tree stopped hesitating. Its crown shone, and a total of 9 Navagraha dragon fruits flew out. I can only bear 9 Navagraha dragon fruits at a time. I have nurtured these 9 fruits for 1,000,000 years. Their effects are far better than ordinary fruits. The Navagraha dragon flame tree's voice sounded. At this moment, flames were also burning on the trunk of the 9 luminaries dragon flame tree. They quickly spread throughout the entire trunk. In the next moment, a miniature version of the Navagraha dragon flame tree appeared before Tianyang. This is my proof of allegiance. The Navagraha dragon flame tree said solemnly. It looked at the spiritual herb garden as if it saw a bright future. Chapter 808. also that I can experience the even more mysterious and magnificent world of martial arts. The Navagraha dragon flame tree said solemnly. At this time, the flames burned and condensed into an incomparably profound flame rune in the air. One by one, the flaming runes connected together, forming a mysterious and complicated contract. An ancient master-servant contract? Seeing this, even Tianyang could not help but exclaim in shock. The ancient master-servant contract was a strange contract that had been lost for a long time. Its binding power was extremely terrifying. Unlike soul slaves, the master-servant contract allowed the servant to have his own thoughts, but his every word and action would be controlled by the master. What was more shocking was that the master-servant contract allowed the servant to share a portion of his cultivation with the master. In other words, once the master-servant contract was signed, the servant would permanently lose a portion of his cultivation speed. Our new master is quite knowledgeable. The Navagraha dragon flame tree was surprised to see Tianyang reveal the origin of the contract. That's right. It's an ancient master-servant contract. Is it necessary? Seeing the Navagraha dragon flame tree admit it, Tianyang hesitated. Even the infant soulfruit tree has no contract with me. The Navagraha dragon flame tree shook his head. It's different. The Navagraha dragon flame tree tribe does not easily recognize a master. If we do, we will live and die together. The true martial dragon emperor may be my master, but it's actually just a partnership. However, you've opened my eyes to a wider world and more possibilities. You're qualified to be my master. The Navagraha dragon flame tree spoke the truth, but there was one thing he did not say. If Tianyang had agreed directly, he would have looked down on Tianyang and would not have signed a master-servant contract. At most, they would be master and servant. However, Tianyang's refusal allowed the Navagraha dragon flame tree to see Tianyang's heart and acknowledge Tianyang even more. The Navagraha dragon flame tree had already said so much, as if he would immediately die if he did not agree. Tianyang could only nod with a bitter smile. A drop of blood flew out of his index finger and landed on the master-servant contract. In the next moment, the contract split into two and entered the bodies of both parties. Tianyang immediately felt a special connection between him and the 9 luminaries dragon flame tree. It was as if he could control everything about the 9 luminaries dragon flame tree. Since that's the case, I won't mistreat you. Seeing this, Tianyang smiled. His true essence surged, and he quickly simulated scroll. This is a secret technique that I obtained by chance in the past. It's called the Nirvana technique. It's useless to me, but it's very useful to you. Don't decline, just accept it. You play with fire, and the Nirvana art of fire Nirvana suits you right now. Tianyang smiled. Hearing that, the Navagraha dragon flame tree hesitated for a moment. Then, it extended its branch and accepted the scroll. Then, the treetop shook and revealed a look of surprise. Thank you for your gift, Master. Tianyang had obtained the Nirvana art from the Great Void Secret Land. It was very useful to him in the past. However, as time passed and Tianyang's strength increased, its usefulness became less and less. Moreover, Tianyang had never seen a situation that could force him to undergo Nirvana. Therefore, this thing could only be stored in the cold storage. Now, giving it to the Navagraha dragon flame tree was not a bad idea. You're heavily injured now, and I don't know how to deal with the damage to the plant creatures. You should rest in the Earth Emperor's spiritual herb garden, Tianyang said. Then, the scene in the Earth Emperor's spiritual herb garden suddenly changed. It turned into a huge space gate. Streams of spiritual chi of heaven and earth escaped from the Earth Emperor's spiritual herb garden. It was not any weaker than the surrounding spiritual chi of heaven and earth. This was the Dragon Emperor's tomb. Even the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the core of the martial arts sanctuary might not be so abundant. The Earth Emperor's spiritual herb garden was comparable to the Dragon Emperor's tomb. Even with the Navagraha dragon flame tree's knowledge, it could not help but be stunned. Thank you, Master. However, after being stunned for a while, The Navagraha dragon flame tree quickly came to its senses. It nodded respectfully and flew in. As a tree, it was not that it could not fly, but it was extremely difficult. Seeing this, Tianyang smiled and closed the space gate. As soon as they entered the main part of the Dragon Emperor's tomb, they obtained 9 Navagraha dragon fruits that had been nurtured for 1,000,000 years. Moreover, they also obtained the Navagraha dragon flame tree. With such a harvest, even with Tianyang's wisdom, it was hard for him not to be excited. Next, it's time to keep our promise and look for the demon ancestor's portrait. Tianyang took out the blurry map given by the 9-tailed monster royal and muttered to himself. Then, he brought along Ling Yuhan, who had been hiding in the dark to prevent any accidents from happening. Let's go. The demon ancestor's portrait recorded the secret soul skill of the demon clan. No wonder the demon clan could not find the demon ancestor's portrait for hundreds of years. It would be strange if they could find such a map. Squatting on a tall giant tree, Tianyang looked at the blurry map in his hand speechlessly. When he first looked at it, he did not think much of it. However, when he entered the Dragon Emperor's tomb and planned to look for it, he realized this blurry map was as good as not having it. According to the 9-tailed monster royal, although the main part of the Dragon Emperor's tomb will not change, it is still abnormally huge. This is already the limit. Ling Yuhan, who was beside him, explained with a wry smile. She also had a lot of complaints about this blurry map. Just now, when she and Tianyang were moving together, they did not know how many mountains and rivers they had traveled. They had flown over at least 100,000 miles. And the result? Not even a fart was found. This demon ancestor's portrait can only be left to fate. Tianyang shook his head and was speechless. At this time, a wave of soul fluctuation suddenly came from the Earth Emperor's spiritual herb garden. Demon ancestor's portrait? Master, are you looking for the demon ancestor's portrait? It was the Navagraha dragon flame tree's voice. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Yes, as a native of the Dragon Emperor's tomb, the 9-Yao dragon flame tree had fought alongside the Dragon Emperor Zhenwu. It might really know the whereabouts of the demon ancestor's portrait. The demon ancestor's portrait is the most precious treasure of the demon tribe. When the Dragon Emperor Zhenwu obtained the demon ancestor's portrait, he could not comprehend anything from it. However, the Dragon Emperor Zhenwu still values it very much. The most likely possibility is that it is hidden in the Dragon Emperor Pagoda, said the 9-Yao dragon flame tree. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. Dragon Emperor Pagoda. The Dragon Emperor Pagoda is where the Dragon Emperor Zhenwu stores his most important treasures. It is equivalent to a human's treasure trove. Although I have never seen the Dragon Emperor Zhenwu dispose of the demon ancestor's portrait, the most likely possibility is still the Dragon Emperor Pagoda, said the 9-Yao dragon flame tree. Hearing this, Tianyang's heart skipped a beat. The Dragon Emperor Zhenwu stores his treasures? The demon ancestor's portrait might indeed be here. Moreover, it was very likely that other precious treasures were also there. If Master wants to go, I can lead the way, said the 9-Yao dragon flame tree. Hearing this, Tianyang immediately. Chapter 809. When the Mausoleum of Dragon Emperor transmits to the 3rd level, it transmits according to the location with the strongest energy fluctuation. Therefore, the majority of people will be teleported to the location of the treasures. The Navagraha dragon flame tree explained. Tianyang nodded slightly. This explained why 4 people would be transported to the same Navagraha dragon flame tree in the huge mausoleum of Dragon Emperor. As for the Dragon Emperor Pagoda, as the treasure trove of the Dragon Emperor Zhenwu, its energy fluctuation is also terrifying. Although the Dragon Emperor Pagoda is located in the center of the mausoleum of Dragon Emperor and is not connected to the nearest area, if the energy fluctuation is strong enough, it will attract the space door. Therefore, the Navagraha dragon flame tree explained again. Tianyang's heart skipped a beat. At this time, Tianyang was getting closer to the Dragon Emperor Pagoda under the guidance of the Navagraha dragon flame tree. There are likely to be many strong people around the Dragon Emperor Pagoda. Boom! Just as the Navagraha dragon flame tree finished speaking, a terrifying attack brushed past Tianyang's ear. It fiercely smashed into the waist of a huge mountain, breaking the 10,000 zhang tall mountain in half. You missed? TSK, TSK. Looks like you're rusty after not fighting for a long time. A contemptuous voice came from the side, and Tianyang's face darkened. He had been listening to the Navagraha dragon flame tree's explanation and did not pay much attention to his surroundings. If he hadn't dodged instinctively, this attack wouldn't have just brushed past his ear. Instead, it would have landed directly on his head. It was a killing move from the start. However, it doesn't matter. A so-called demon venerable who is not even in the heavenly ascension realm is just trash in my hands. The voice came again. In the next moment, a flaming fist tore through the void and came for Tianyang again. Humph! Tianyang's face darkened. He gathered the vital essence in his hand and swung his right hand. The flaming fist instantly exploded and turned into sparks that filled the sky before being devoured by the heavenly sun. I was wondering who it was. So it's the loyal henchman of the ancient shrine, Sovereign Qi Yan. Tianyang sneered when he turned around and saw the face of the person who attacked. Blazing scarlet flames ignited on the newcomer's body. The aura of a peak heavenly completion stage level 5 gushed out, seemingly wanting to cause the entire sky to explode. He was clad in an upper-grade spiritual armor and wore a pair of upper-grade spiritual boxing gloves. With such equipment and scarlet flames, who else could it be other than the Scarlet Flame Supreme of the Scarlet Flame sect from the human race's martial Holy Land? Supremacy Scarlet Flame's face darkened when he heard that. Killing intent flickered in his eyes. The Scarlet Flame sect had always followed the ancient God Temple's lead. If the ancient God Temple said that the Scarlet Flame sect would not dare to go west, then the ancient God Temple said that the Scarlet Flame sect would die. None of the Scarlet Flame sect dared to live. This was no secret on the continent. However, since ancient times, Tianyang was the only one who dared to publicly expose the Scarlet Flame sect's strongest powerhouse, the Scarlet Flame Prime. Is this the last arrogance of the dead? Well, when a person is about to die, he naturally dares to say anything. At this moment, Supremacy Scarlet Flame suddenly sneered. You're actually wanted by the ancient God Temple. Since ancient times, you're the only one in the younger generation. Moreover, you even forced the Lord of a martial Holy Land to take action. Boy, you should be proud of yourself when you go to the underworld. Supremacy Scarlet Flame laughed. Tianyang's face was indifferent when he heard that. The corners of his mouth curled up into a mocking smile. In the end, aren't you just a lackey of the ancient God Temple? Supremacy Scarlet Flame's face darkened when he heard that. Just like what others said, you, Tianyang, are really arrogant to the extreme. Do you really think that you can be arrogant in front of me just because you're called Sword King and Demon Venerable? In my opinion, you're all trash. Supremacy Scarlet Flame mocked. The next moment, his figure suddenly disappeared. Boy, go to hell. A terrifyingly hot gust of wind blasted towards Heavenly Sun's face. Dragon King's divine fist, 10,000 dragons slaughtering gods. Tianyang's face also turned slightly solemn. Hundreds of dragon patterns on the divine dragon's dragon core shone, and dragon power surged out. The surrounding dragon, Qi, seemed to be summoned by the divine dragon's dragon core. It turned into a dragon Qi storm and formed around Tianyang's body. Dragon King's divine fist? A human actually knows the Dragon Clan's martial skill? Seeing this, Supremacy Scarlet Flame's pupils shrank. Dragon King's divine fist was a martial skill that was never taught to outsiders by the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace. Tianyang actually knew it, and he had cultivated it to such a high level. Damn it! Supremacy Scarlet Flame's eyes burned with jealousy. In the past, he had traded the Dragon King's divine fist with the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace, but the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace didn't agree. In the end, Tianyang had learned a martial skill that even he didn't have. Whether you know the Dragon King's divine fist or not, you must die today. Red Flame Fire Fist. Supremacy Scarlet Flame roared, and the true essence of a peak 5th level Heaven Ascension realm suddenly erupted. Tianyang's face suddenly turned ugly. He didn't care whether the surrounding dragon chi storm belonged to him or not. He directly stretched out his hand and beckoned. 10,000 dragons slaying gods. 10,000 dragons slaying gods. Condense. Kill. Tianyang roared and punched out. 10,000 dragons roared. Heaven and earth trembled. All things bowed. One by one, giant dragons bared their fangs and brandished their claws, erupting with a powerful aura. They suddenly attacked, carrying a terrifying dragon might that even the current Dragon King might not be able to do. If Tianyang's Dragon King's divine fist was said to be second in the world, then no one dared to claim to be first. Therefore, although both sides were using a low-grade heaven-tier martial skill, but the Dragon King's divine fist still broke through Supremacy Scarlet Flame's fist. Boom! The flame light curtain collapsed, and Supremacy Scarlet Flame's seal also suddenly shattered for a moment. And Tianyang also took advantage of this opportunity to put Ling Yuhan into the Earth Emperor's spiritual her garden. He released the secret technique of stepping on air, and his speed instantly exploded to the limit. What? Seeing this, Supremacy Scarlet Flame's face changed greatly. Tianyang actually broke through his Red Flame Fire Fist. Even if he didn't use his full strength, it was definitely not something that a Heaven Ascension Realm person could resist. He must have some secret technique. Supremacy Scarlet Flame's incredulous expression quickly turned into greed and murderous intent. He also used his movement technique and chased after Tianyang. Kid, die for me. Red flames billowed, burning the entire sky. And in front of Red Flame, the figure of a young man who looked at most 20 years old released a powerful speed that wasn't any weaker than Red Flames, flying toward the center of the Dragon Emperor's mausoleum. Many strong people saw this scene. They were dumbfounded, and those who recognized the two were even more shocked. Tianyang is actually being chased by Supremacy Scarlet Flame? Chapter 810. A lackey will always be a lackey, like a mad dog, chasing after people without letting go. A voice full of ridicule came from the sky. Hearing this, the people below all revealed a trace of confusion. After that figure, another figure whose entire body was burning with crimson flames appeared. Kid, when this Supreme catches you, I'll definitely tear you to pieces. Supreme Chi Yin roared crazily. At this moment, he also felt extremely sullen. As the master of a martial arts holy land, it was already very bad for him to lower his status to chase after a junior. In the end, he still couldn't catch up. At first, the speed of both sides was about the same, but as time passed, Tianyang's speed actually became faster and faster. Although Supreme Chi Yin's speed didn't change, the distance between them was also getting farther and farther. This guy, what is he made of? Could it be that his true essence won't be consumed? Supreme Chi Yin's face was full of shock. One had to know that although Supreme Chi Yin didn't specialize in cultivating speed, his speed was one of the best among all the masters of martial arts holy lands. With such speed, not to mention chasing after a half-step Heaven Ascension Realm peak, even if he was chasing after a Heaven Ascension Realm magical beast, he could still catch up. However, Tianyang broke his understanding. After running for 3 minutes, he directly pulled away from him. Tianyang was also extremely shocked in his heart. Supreme Chi Yin, who was at the peak of Heaven Ascension Realm 5th level, and the Vajra Bodhi Seed, who was at the peak of Heaven Ascension Realm 4th level, were on a completely different level. At the Heaven Ascension Realm, every small realm increase would bring a qualitative leap in strength. To deal with the Vajra Bodhi Seed, Tianyang only needed to use the heaven-devouring secret technique to deal with it. However, to deal with Supreme Chi Yin, Tianyang didn't use the power of Shuntian Wuzuan or the power of Wuzuan's soul. Only the 10,000 swords to Origin and the immemorial Blood Seal could fight. However, to use these two half-step Saint Martial skills was far from that simple. The only thing he could do was to use the void-treading secret technique to buy time. However, This void-treading secret technique is actually so powerful. Previously, he had been using the myriad Daos movement art to replace the void-treading secret technique. Therefore, he did not understand the secret of the void-treading secret technique. Now, he had no choice but to use the void-treading secret technique. Only then did he realize how powerful the void-treading secret technique was. As Tianyang used it, Tianyang's understanding of the void-treading secret technique became stronger and stronger. The fifth and sixth layers of the void-treading secret technique were broken through in an instant. This void-stepping secret technique actually hides the Tao of space. I didn't expect that an incomplete secret skill from the Snowgale Nation would have such a strong power. Tianyang was shocked. At the same time, he diverted some of his attention to comprehend the space Tao contained in the void-stepping secret technique. With Tianyang's strong comprehension ability and the terrifying foundation of having comprehended two saintly paths, it was not difficult for him to comprehend the elementary path of space. As a result, even though Tianyang's cultivation was thousands of miles away from Sovereign Qian's, he was able to easily widen the gap between them. Damn you! But this time, Supreme Qian finally couldn't bear it any longer. He reared his head back and howled. How many years had it been? Supreme Qian, who had dominated the continent, had never been toyed with like this before. Even a half-step Heavenly Ascension realm martial artist could ride on his face. Get back here for this Supreme Crimson Flame Maelstrom, Supreme Qian roared. The true essence of a peak Heavenly Ascension realm fifth layer instantly erupted, turning into a flame maelstrom with an incomparably terrifying suction force, blasting towards Tianyang. In an instant, an incomparably tyrannical suction force acted on Tianyang's body. Tianyang's figure suddenly turned sluggish, feeling as if his feet had stepped into a quagmire. At this time, Supreme Qian's face was ferocious as he charged over. Brat, you dare to humiliate this Supreme like this. This Supreme will definitely tear you to pieces. Supreme Qian roared. In the next moment, his hands turned into raging flames, releasing a terrifying pressure. Seeing this, Tianyang's pupils shrank. Scarlet Flame Sect's inherited spiritual fire, Skyfire Flame? Tianyang said. Hearing this, Supreme Qian sneered. At least you have some knowledge. To be able to die in the hands of this Supreme's inherited spiritual fire. Even if you go to hell, you'll be able to boast. Now die for this Supreme. Supreme Qian roared. The true essence of a peak Heavenly Ascension realm fifth layer completely erupted. With the previous experience of being instantly broken by Tianyang, this time, Supreme Qian no longer had any intention of underestimating him. The moment he attacked, he mobilized all of his true essence. To be able to become a peak Heavenly Ascension realm fifth layer master, Supreme Qian was naturally not an ordinary person. Seeing this, Tianyang's face sank slightly. Tianyang did not intend to use Shun Tian Wuzuan's strength. Now, he could only, with Wu Zun's soul force, he could use myriad returning swords. Sword light flashed in his hand, and the great void sword embryo appeared. The heaven-devouring mystic technique was activated once more. In the blink of an eye, his cultivation recovered to peak Heavenly Ascension realm third layer. However, seeing this scene, Supreme Qian only raised his eyebrows in surprise. I've long heard that you have a secret technique that can instantly increase your strength. Now that I see it, it's true. However, no matter how strong you are, you're still just trash. Supreme Qian sneered. Heavenly flames burned, and his true essence was released violently. In the next moment, he punched out. The entire world was suddenly swept up by a layer of invisible spatial waves. Rolling scarlet flames rushed out along with the waves. Heaven Tier Mid-Grade Martial Technique 9 Revolution Heavenly Flame Fist. Supreme Qian roared. Heavenly flames burned fiercely and brazenly attacked. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression also became serious. 9 Revolution Heavenly Flame Fist was the Scarlet Flame Sect guarding martial technique, although it was only similar to the Dragon King Divine Fist. However, if it was unleashed by Prime Qian, its power would definitely be terrifying. 10,000 swords. Tianyang's true essence quickly condensed, and the divine desolate heaven spirit art rapidly circulated. The great void sword embryo in his hand shone with layers of terrifying light. Return. At this moment, a black shadow suddenly appeared between Tianyang and Supreme Qian. Luo wants to eat delicious food. Seeing this, Tianyang's pupils suddenly constricted. That was Tianyang's daughter, who had been entrusted by Tianlang and had been in a deep sleep recently. By Luo. What is it? Supreme Qian frowned, and then his expression turned cold. No matter what it is, just kill it. Supreme Qian, if you dare to touch Luo in the slightest, I, Tianyang, will slaughter your entire Scarlet Flame sect, even if I have to go to the heavens. Tianyang's eyes instantly turned blood red. The true essence in his hand went berserk, and he slashed out. Resplendent sword light swept across the void and suddenly slashed out. However, before Tianyang slashed out, 10,000 swords return to origin. Luo had already sunk into the 9-revolution heavenly flame fist. Supreme Qian, I will definitely kill you. The seal in Tianyang's soul, could no longer be suppressed. At this moment, a clear and tender voice suddenly sounded. Mysterious and powerful runes shone in the sea of fire. In the next moment, the entire sea of heavenly flame suddenly disappeared. Delicious, delicious, Luo wants more. Chapter 811. The 9-revolution sky, flame, fist was gone? When this scene appeared, Premier Qi Yin was dumbfounded. Tianyang was also dumbfounded. Even Bai Luo seemed to be dumbfounded. It was as if Bai Luo didn't know what the sea of fire was. At this time, Tianyang's mind suddenly shook as he recalled something. Back then, during the Sky Blue College's Intercore tournament, Tianyang had obtained the Heaven Pagoda and Bai Luo from the Celestial Wolfwalker. Bai Luo wasn't the Celestial Wolfwalker's biological granddaughter. They had no blood relations at all. He had found her somewhere. After that, when Bai Luo opened her mouth to spit fire, and when she dealt with Zhao Wuji and the spirit of demonic qi, she had displayed her uniqueness. She had strange runes on her body and had a special ability toward flames. From the looks of it, this ability seemed to be eat. How is this possible? What kind of monster is this thing? In the end, Premier Qi Yin reacted a step faster than Tianyang. He looked at Bai Luo, who was sitting cross-legged in the air in disbelief and shock. The Scarlet Flame sect's inherited spirit fire, the Skyfire Flame, was a level 6 spirit fire. In the hands of Premier Qi Yin, it could display a power that far exceeded that of an ordinary level 6 spirit fire. After all, the Skyfire Flame was the Scarlet Flame sect's inherited spirit fire. Premier Qi Yin had grown up in the Scarlet Flame sect, so his aura was naturally extremely compatible with the Skyfire Flame. If Premier Qi Yin hadn't expected this punch to kill Tianyang, would have been no problem. But the result? A little girl had popped out of nowhere and swallowed his 9-revolution sky flame fist. No matter what you are, you must die for ruining my plans. Premier Qi Yin's expression quickly turned ferocious. A Skyfire Flame burned once again and charged toward Bai Luo. At this time, Tianyang also reacted quickly. He erupted with the terrifying speed of the void treading secret technique and directly dodged with Bai Luo. Although the strange runes on Bai Luo's body might have swallowed the Skyfire Flame, but that was possible. Even if there was only a 1 in a million chance of failure, Tianyang would never allow Bai Luo to be attacked in front of him. Phew! Thank goodness I dodged it. Tianyang hugged Bai Luo and heaved a sigh of relief when he was dozens of kilometers away. Although he wasn't related to Bai Luo by blood, Tianyang was extremely protective of this little girl who called him father. Daddy, Luo still wants to eat. At this moment, Bai Luo suddenly stretched out her hand and called out. Hearing this, Tianyang bitterly smiled. Luo, you should go back first. I don't have time to make delicious food for you right now. Spatial energy surged in Tianyang's hand as he tried to teleport Bai Luo into the Heaven Tower. Bai Luo pouted and glared fiercely at Sovereign Scarlet Flame. Luo understands. It was this rotten old man who bullied Daddy. You won't let Daddy give Luo good food. Luo angrily shouted. In the next moment, the mysterious rune exploded once again. Even Tianyang's Wu Zun realm soul power couldn't react in time. Bai Luo's rune bombarded Sovereign Scarlet Flame's head. All the flames in Sovereign Scarlet Flame's body instantly surged into the mysterious rune. Even Sovereign Scarlet Flame was sent flying by the rune, spitting out a mouthful of blood. The rune didn't seem to be interested in Sovereign Scarlet Flame's blood. After absorbing Sovereign Scarlet Flame's scarlet flames, it flew back and entered Bai Luo's body. Bai Luo yawned and quickly fell into a deep sleep. Seeing this, Tianyang was speechless. However, he still sent Bai Luo back. However, when he raised his head again, the anger on his face had transformed into a mocking smile. Sovereign Scarlet Flame, I wonder how it feels to have your flames eaten. You, Sovereign Scarlet Flame, was enraged. Just as he was about to roar out in anger, a fist rapidly enlarged in his eyes. Bang! Sovereign Scarlet Flame's face was struck by Tianyang's fist. His face nearly caved in. He spat out another mouthful of blood and was sent flying once more. As for Tianyang, he faintly smiled as he saw this. Sure enough, his expectations weren't wrong. After Sovereign Scarlet Flame's Heavenfire Flames were eaten by Luo, he wouldn't be able to use them again for a short period of time. Without the Heavenfire Flames, Sovereign Scarlet Flame was like a peerless swordsman without a sword. His combat strength had been reduced by more than half. If Sovereign Scarlet Flame was in his peak condition, Tianyang would have to open his Wuzun realm soul power to deal with him. As for Sovereign Scarlet Flame, who only had half his strength left, he would just hang him up and whip him. Damn brat, you dare! Sovereign Scarlet Flame roared. He quickly adjusted his balance. His figure flashed, and he punched out. A flame flashed. However, this time, it wasn't the Heavenfire Flames that burned, but ordinary true essence flames. Without the Heavenfire Flames, this sovereign is still a sovereign. Low-grade Heaven Step martial skill, Desolate Flame Palm. Sovereign Scarlet Flame roared. His peak 5th level Heaven Ascension realm true essence erupted, releasing a rolling pressure. The pressure caused the heavens and earth to tremble. Without the Heavenfire Flames, Sovereign Scarlet Flame was still a supreme powerhouse of this world. However, Tianyang didn't show any fear. The divine, desolate, heavenly spirit art in his body rapidly revolved. Streams of tyrannical and pure true essence appeared in his hand, flowing into the great void sword embryo. Facing Sovereign Scarlet Flame's desolate flame palm, Tianyang. Just one sword. 10,000 swords returned to origin. Tianyang roared. His true essence that had risen to the peak of Heaven Ascension realm 3rd level crazily erupted. The dragon force of the divine dragon was like a real divine dragon madly rushing out. 10,000 swords returned to origin, the first move of a saint martial skill. Even if there was only one move, Tianyang only knew this one move. However, Tianyang, who had inherited Shuntian Wuzun's cultivation memories, had an understanding of 10,000 swords return to origin. It was enough to allow 10,000 swords return to origin to erupt with unparalleled power in this Tianshao great world. What? Sovereign Scarlet Flame's expression changed greatly. His pupils shrank to the size of a needle. He actually felt a sense of threat, a threat to his life. This sword, what is it? Sovereign Scarlet Flame roared in his heart. At this time, the desolate flame palm and 10,000 swords returned to origin fiercely collided. Bang! The heavens and earth trembled, and all things collapsed. Tianyang and Sovereign Scarlet Flame's collision caused even the mountains and rivers 10,000 miles below to collapse. The surrounding space was as fragile as glass, shattering. In the entire world, there were only the two of them. Far away, The powerhouses watching the battle revealed a trace of shock that was difficult to resolve. Sovereign Scarlet Flame was defeated. Bang! Desolate Flame Palm, broken. 10,000 swords returned to origin. After consuming a certain amount of power, finally broke through the Desolate Flame Palm and slammed into Sovereign Scarlet Flame's chest. Puff! Sovereign Scarlet Flame spat out a large mouthful of blood. The armor on his chest cracked open, revealing a bloody wound inside. In the next moment, Sovereign Scarlet Flame hurriedly turned around and flew towards the center of the Dragon Emperor's mausoleum. Tianyang did not show any weakness. Stepping on the air, he chased after Sovereign Scarlet Flame. Chapter 8:12. One sword strike heavily injured Supreme Chi Yin, the master of a holy land. F***CK. What did I just see? Is this world collapsing? Sword King. No. Demon Venerable actually heavily injured Supreme Chi Yin? That's a top powerhouse of the continent. How could he be defeated by a young man? Everyone who was paying attention to this battle was shocked. Supreme Chi Yin had been famous for 1,000 years, and his name had shaken the entire continent. Although the Scarlet Flame sect was not the strongest among all the martial holy lands other than the ancient shrine, Scarlet Flame Supreme was definitely the strongest lord of the Holy Land. Even the big shots of Buddhism and Nine Heavens Palace didn't dare to casually start a conflict with such an existence. If Supreme Chi Yin was angered, perhaps even his own Holy Land's defensive array wouldn't be able to withstand it. It could be said that if the old Dragon King, the Ancient Shrine's Grand Elder, and the Ancient Shrine's Temple Master didn't appear, Supreme Chi Yin was the strongest powerhouse in the world. Such a powerhouse was actually defeated by Tianyang. Damn brat, you dare to seriously injure this Supreme. When this Supreme recovers, I will definitely cut you into 8 pieces. Being chased by Tianyang, this feeling of being switched between a cat and a mouse made Supreme Chi Yin feel extremely aggrieved. More than 10 minutes ago, he was still the one chasing after Tianyang. Tianyang was chased to the heavens and the earth, and he almost killed Tianyang. However, because of Bailuo's appearance, his heavenly flame origin was injured, and he couldn't use it for a short period of time. As a result, the dignified Supreme Chi Yin was actually defeated by Tianyang. The relationship between the hunter and the prey had been switched. Cut into 8 pieces? Hearing this, Tianyang, who was using a secret technique to shorten the distance between him and Supreme Chi Yin, smiled faintly. He teased, "Didn't you say that you would be cut into 10,000 pieces before? Why are you being cut into 8 pieces now?" Hearing this, Supreme Chi Yin was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. Just as he was about to reply, Tianyang's sword slashed over. Supreme Chi Yin was so frightened that he hurriedly turned left, narrowly dodging the sword. However, the distance between him and Tianyang shortened again. Supreme Chi Yin was also extremely aggrieved and anxious. Now that he was seriously injured, if he had the assistance of medicinal pills, he could recover in 2 or 3 days. However, this wasn't Heaven Continent. Under the pursuit of Heavenly Sun, it was impossible for him to rest for even a second. If this continued, then Supreme Crimson Flame might even be overturned by Heavenly Sun. There's no other way. I can only go to that place now. Supreme Crimson Flame sighed. Then, he changed directions. True Essence blazed, increasing his speed once more. It was heading towards the center of the Dragon Emperor Mausoleum, where the Dragon Emperor Pagoda was located. Seeing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. Could it be that Supreme Chi Yin was also going to the Dragon Emperor's tomb? Tianyang slashed out with his sword. In an instant, an extremely sharp and terrifying sword light rapidly formed, shooting towards Supreme Chi Yin. Seeing this, Premier Scarlet Flame's expression changed drastically. He shouted, "Tianyang, do you really want to fight to the death with the Scarlet Flame sect? Even the demon race may not necessarily be able to fight against a martial Tao Holy Land. Wasn't it already a life-and-death struggle?" Tianyang smiled. Then his face turned grim. He stepped on the slaughter territory and sped up again. It's been 10,000 years. None of the people I want to kill have survived. Boom! Tianling's sword burst forth with extreme speed, slashing viciously at Supreme Qi Yan's head. If he was hit, at the very least, Sovereign Crimson Flame's head would be separated from his body. At the very worst, there was a chance that his soul would be destroyed. What? Supreme Qi Yan's face changed as he felt the terrifying aura of this sword strike. Then he clenched his teeth. He actually ignored the damage to his heavenly flame origin and forcefully unleashed the heavenly flame origin. At the same time, the power of space acted on Sovereign Scarlet Flame. You actually forced this Supreme to use this move. Kid, just you wait. This Supreme will cut you into pieces sooner or later. Supreme Qi Yan roared out. In the next moment, the power of space surged rapidly as Supreme Qi Yan turned into a stream of blazing light and flew towards the center of the Dragon Emperor tomb. The instantaneous burst of speed was actually something that even Tianling's sword light couldn't catch up to. Tianyang was slightly surprised as he didn't expect Supreme Qi Yan to have such a move when he was at death's door. But a few seconds later, Tianyang reacted. Extreme speed formed by burning the origin? It seems like Supreme Qi Yan is also forced to the extreme. Forget it, let him escape. Tianyang twitched his mouth and slowed down his speed. Tianyang knew clearly that the Dragon Emperor tomb had just opened for a few days, and it was impossible to kill Supreme Qi Yan. As a Saint Landlord, how could Supreme Qi Yan not have any life-saving methods? The life-saving methods of a Saint Landlord would only be countless times stronger than the Vajra Bodhiseed's Buddha power and the Sword Saint Sex Li Fuchen's Sword Saint power. Tianyang wasn't afraid of a life and death struggle. With his recovery speed and elixirs, he would be able to recover in a few months. If he could activate his undying bloodline, Tianyang would be even happier. However, in the tomb of the Dragon King, every second was as precious as gold. If he had to spend a few months to recuperate, it wouldn't be worth it. From the direction, Supreme Qi Yan seems to be heading for the Dragon Emperor Pagoda too. Tianyang raised his eyebrows slightly. Then the corners of his mouth curled into a subtle smile. There's a good show to watch. Huff! Huff! A flaming light suddenly landed on the ground, and Supreme Qi Yan's heavy panting could be heard. Supreme Qi Yan had one hand on the ground and the other hand on his heart. He was kneeling on one knee, and his face was pale. What is going on? Around the Dragon Emperor Pagoda, some of the experts were shocked as they looked at the severely injured Supreme Qi Yan. What exactly happened? Why would a tyrant, Supreme Qi Yan, be injured to such an extent? Could there be experts from a martial Dao Saint Land working together? Everyone was making guesses. At this moment, Supreme Qi Yan suddenly lifted his head and looked at the towering Dragon Emperor Pagoda. His eyes flashed with anger. Tianyang, just you wait. When I come out from the Dragon Emperor Pagoda, it will be the day of your death. Subsequently, Supreme Qi Yan threw away the shattered high-grade spirit artifact battle armor and consumed a few recuperation elixirs to recover before walking in. Many of the experts that left the Dragon Emperor Pagoda empty-handed looked at each other in dismay. When the world happened, right at this moment, there were a few more streams of light that flew over from the horizon. Is that the Penglai Island's Island Lord? Hurry up and ask him what happened. Someone noticed the newcomer's identity and quickly asked. But before anyone spoke, the Penglai Island's Island Lord looked around and asked. Chapter 813. The Dragon King Pagoda is not just a treasure trove of the Dragon Emperor Zhenwu. At the same time, it's a supreme-grade spiritual weapon of the Dragon Emperor Zhenwu. It's the strongest weapon of the Dragon Emperor Zhenwu. The Navagra Dragon Tree said as Tianyang rushed towards the Dragon King Pagoda. Supreme-grade spiritual weapon? Tianyang's heart skipped a beat. Tianyang was no stranger to supreme-grade spiritual weapons. In his previous life, the heavenly sword had evolved into a supreme-grade spiritual weapon. However, after being reborn for so many years, Tianyang had not seen a supreme-grade spiritual weapon, even though he had seen many of the most powerful people in the mainland. The most powerful spiritual weapon was a peak superior-grade spiritual weapon. However, it was still a long way from being a supreme-grade spiritual weapon. That's right. It's a supreme-grade spiritual weapon. It's a genuine, innate cardinal treasure, the Navagraha dragon tree said. Innate cardinal treasure? Tianyang was puzzled. The Navagraha dragon tree explained. Innate cardinal treasures are treasures that have not been refined. Once they appear, they are of a certain level. Once they appear, they cannot be changed. Most of the supreme-grade spiritual weapons in the world are innate cardinal treasures. Only a few of them came from the extraterritorial world. The Dragon King Pagoda is one of the innate cardinal treasures. Not only does it have a huge treasure trove, but it also has an unusually strong sealing power. It's said that the Dragon Emperor Zhen Wu left his legacy in the Dragon King Pagoda. However, I don't know about that. The Navagraha dragon tree said. Tianyang was enlightened. No wonder he had seen so few supreme-grade spiritual weapons. It turned out that there were very few supreme-grade spiritual weapons in the Tianshao Great World that were made after birth. Tianyang's Tianyao sword was already an oddity among oddities. The Great Void Sword embryo, a saint weapon embryo, could not be measured with common sense. The legacy of the Dragon Emperor, Zhen Wu. However, Tianyang's interest was piqued by these few words. Dragon Emperor Zhen Wu was the only Dragon Emperor of the Dragon Tribe. His strength had dominated the Middle Ancient Era, and he had dominated the world. In that era, even Emperor Taishu was no match for him. It could be said that Dragon Emperor Zhen Wu was the brightest star in the middle of the primordial age. Even though Tianyang was also an emperor, he was very interested in the true martial Dragon Emperor's inheritance. The nine-tempered dragon body had already reached a bottleneck. The road ahead could only be walked by himself, unless he could run to some nook and cranny of an outer realm world and drag Crimson Dragon Wu Zun out for questioning. However, this was impossible. The only path was the ancestral dragon body that Tianyang had created. If he wanted to perfect it, the true martial Dragon Emperor, as the Emperor of the Dragon Clan, would definitely be an excellent reference. It seems like the Dragon Emperor's pagoda isn't as simple as the demon ancestor drawing. Tianyang chuckled, after which he slowed down and landed in front of the Dragon Emperor's pagoda. Towering and huge, the Dragon Emperor's pagoda could be as large as Tianyang wanted. However, the largest it could be was what Tianyang had seen. It was tens of thousands of zhang tall and thousands of feet wide. Hidden inside was a mustard seed space that was even more mysterious than a dimensional bag. The space inside was bigger than what one could see from the outside. The style of the Dragon Emperor's pagoda was also different from what Tianyang had seen before. It was different from the intricate and magnificent palaces and towers of the human race. The Dragon Emperor's pagoda only had these 4 words: rough and wild. Every component was unadorned. If they were taken out individually, people would definitely think that they were strange stones on the street. However, when thousands, tens of millions, or even billions of them were put together, it was as if they were made by heaven. It was flawless. This was the charm of an ultimate treasure nurtured by the world. Originally, the true martial Dragon Emperor wanted to install 2 superior-grade jade dragon decorations at the top of the Dragon Emperor's pagoda. However, the Dragon Emperor's pagoda rejected them. He had no choice but to do this. Although it's called the Dragon Emperor's pagoda, this supreme-grade spiritual treasure doesn't seem to have anything to do with the Dragon Clan. The Navagraha dragon tree explained. Hearing this, Tianyang smiled faintly. Then, he looked down at the entrance of the Dragon Emperor's pagoda. He raised an eyebrow. As expected, the Dragon Emperor's pagoda was already open. There were many people surrounding it. Chi and Prime, you've been here before, right? Tianyang smiled. Hearing this, the surrounding people, including the Punlai Island Master, who was one of the strongest people in the South Sea, nodded with a look of horror. Yes, Chi and Prime rushed here 10 minutes ago and directly rushed into the pagoda, the Punlai Island Master said, trembling. Even though he was a Heaven Ascension Realm Tier 4 cultivator, he was still an overlord on the mainland. However, in front of Tianyang, who could easily injure a Heaven Ascension Realm Tier 5 cultivator, a Heaven Ascension Realm Tier 4 cultivator was nothing. The Penglai Island Master was already the strongest person present. If that was the case, the others were even more terrified. Hearing this, Tianyang shook his head helplessly. He was not a lunatic who would kill anyone on sight. This group of people was too afraid. If the people in the outside world saw their sect masters and elders in such a state, they would probably want to withdraw from the sect immediately. 10 minutes? Seems like you dawdled on the way here. Tianyang smiled, then waved his hand. All right, do whatever you want. I don't know how to kill. Hearing this, everyone's face twitched. Don't know how to kill? From Ashura Sword King to the Sword King to the Demon Venerable. How many people had he killed along the way? Tianyang had killed at least a few thousand experts and geniuses. How could such a person say that he did not know how to kill? Of course, this group of Heaven Ascension Realm elites did not have tens or hundreds of thousands of lives on their hands. However, they did not have a single one. To have such terrifying strength at the age of 20, and to have killed countless geniuses of various factions at the age of 20. Entered the Dragon Emperor's pagoda? Interesting. Who knows? This guy might bring me some unexpected fun. Looking helplessly at the expressions of the people around him, Tianyang turned his gaze back to the majestic pagoda. A faint smile appeared on his face. In the next moment, his figure flashed. In a split second, when no one was aware of it, Yi Zichen's expression changed drastically. Tianyang's figure disappeared from the spot. He had entered the Dragon Emperor's pagoda. After a full 3 seconds, just now, someone noticed the change in the surroundings. Tianyang. Why did he disappear? Dragon Emperor's pagoda. Tianyang stood in the Dragon Emperor's pagoda. His face darkened. Around him was a boundless sandstorm. Under his feet was a barren desert. There was no grass or wood for thousands of miles. Under his feet, mysterious and powerful formation runes were emitting a faint light. Each formation rune was dozens of miles long. When combined, they formed a terrifying formation that covered the entire Dragon Emperor's pagoda. Damn! The corners of Tianyang's mouth curled into a strange smile. In his soul perception, the connection between his soul and true Yuan had been weakened to an extremely thin degree. Dragon Flame Tree. You didn't tell me. Chapter 814. Forbidden Spell. These 2 words were enough to strike fear into the hearts of all vital essence cultivators, even those in the Heavenly Ascension realm. The most important thing for a cultivator was their vital essence. Their physical body and soul were secondary. After all, cultivation was the cultivation of vital essence. Most of a cultivator's techniques could only be executed through vital essence. Vital essence was a powerful weapon in a cultivator's hands. But what if someone snatched this weapon away? Then it would be, a fallen tiger would be bullied by dogs, and a plucked phoenix would be inferior to a chicken. The forbidden technique was to forbid all magic power. Even vital essence would be prohibited, and the Dragon Emperor Pagoda was such a forbidden space. I'm just cooperating with the true martial Dragon Emperor. I'm not good at fighting and have never fought. I don't know what it's like inside the Dragon Emperor Pagoda. The Navagraha Dragon Tree said helplessly. Tianyang could only shrug his shoulders. It was not the Navagraha Dragon Tree's fault. However, the forbidden spell of a supreme-grade spiritual weapon was indeed extraordinary. Even with Tianyang's Wu Zun realm's spiritual power, he felt as if he was completely forbidden. He had to use all his strength to activate a trace of vital essence. But Tianyang did not mind. A trace of true origin was enough for him to look down on everyone else in this forbidden space. Moreover, Tianyang's physical strength was unparalleled. He was unparalleled in his generation. Even the true dragon tribe, known for their physical strength, might not be as strong as his. No wonder those Heavenly Ascension realm cultivators felt as if they had been here before. It's all because of this forbidden space. Tianyang's lips curled into a subtle smile. He instantly recalled how those Heavenly Ascension Realm cultivators had returned empty-handed at the entrance of the Dragon Emperor Pagoda. Tianyang had not noticed it before, but now he saw it. They were clearly restricted by the forbidden space and could not do anything. Speaking of which, could this blurry map record the situation inside the Dragon Emperor Pagoda? If that's the case, then it makes sense. Tianyang muttered to himself and took out the blurry map in his hand. A bright and terrifying Xinguang suddenly erupted from the blurry map in the forbidden space. The Xinguang instantly unleashed an endless amount of demonic energy, which then turned into a seal and entered Tianyang's palm. Tianyang also felt that the mark on his palm seemed to correspond to something in the distance. I can sense the location of the martial ancestor drawing on this blurry map. Tianyang was slightly startled. The location of the demonic ancestral portrait was recorded on the blurry map. Now that something strange had happened, it was surely related to the demonic ancestral portrait. However, what Tianyang didn't expect was that this blurry map would actually directly tell him where he was. Roar! At this moment, a terrifying roar suddenly came from behind. What followed was a terrifying gust of wind. Whoosh! A gust of wind tore through space and shot toward Tianyang's head. Tianyang snorted coldly and tapped the ground with the tip of his foot. His figure instantly disappeared on the spot. At the same time, his right fist blasted out. Boom! That gust of wind instantly exploded and turned into smoke and dust that filled the sky. You actually blocked the attack of my artifact. At this moment, a surprised voice was heard. Tianyang looked toward the direction of the voice. He saw an extremely young man sitting on top of a huge, ferocious beast that was 100 feet tall. His right hand was stretched out, and there was true origin circulating on it. The aura was exactly the same as the one that attacked Tianyang previously. Tianyang's expression also turned cold at this moment. But it doesn't matter. Kid, I saw a bright light in your hand before. I guess a treasure has appeared. The young man laughed disdainfully. Now, hand over the artifact, and I can still spare your life. Otherwise, in this forbidden space, no matter how strong your cultivation is, you are just trash in front of my artifact. The young man sneered. Hearing this, the coldness on Tianyang's face melted a little. A strange smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. From the life aura that this young man exuded, although this young man looked young, his actual age was very old. He was probably more than 10 times Tianyang's age. However, his wisdom was still similar to a young man in his 20s. This made Tianyang think of a race. Shadow Clan? Tianyang said. The Shadow Clan was the opposite of the Spirit Clan. The people of the Spirit Clan were born with a pure spirit body, but their lifespans were extremely short. The people of the Shadow Clan had extremely long lifespans. Their talent was average, but their spiritual intelligence was awakened much later. Oh, you can actually recognize my race. It seems that a puny human like you has some knowledge. Seeing this, the young man sneered. His left foot heavily stepped on the giant beast. The giant beast suddenly burst out with a roar. Roar! Rumbling waves of pressure exploded in all directions. This is the giant beast that I tamed in the forbidden space. It has a trace of true origin, and I, with my artifact, can also display a trace of true origin. Brat, if you don't want to die, hand over your treasure and kneel in front of me. Only then can you escape with your life. The young man stood on top of the giant beast, looking down with contempt. In the eyes of the Shadow Clan, the strength of the human and demon races was far stronger than the Shadow Clan. However, the Shadow Clan was still the noblest race. However, although he understood the nature of the Shadow Clan, Tianyang's face still sank when he heard this. His face revealed a trace of coldness. Scram! Hearing this, the Shadow Clan young man's pupils shrank. His face instantly turned gloomy. He gritted his teeth so hard that they almost broke. What did you say? Monstrous anger erupted from the Shadow Clan young man's body. This human young man that he could kill with a raise of his hand actually dared to tell him to scram? To tell someone who could use an artifact in the forbidden space to scram? If you don't scram, then leave your life behind. Tianyang sneered. Even if it was outside, Tianyang didn't fear anyone at all. Moreover, this was the forbidden space. It could cover up Tianyang's disadvantages and magnify his advantages to the limit. There was actually someone who dared to mess with him. They didn't want to live anymore. You're courting death. Hearing this, the Shadow Clan young man couldn't hold back his anger. The artifact in his hand erupted with a dark light. In the next moment, it turned into sharp arrows and shot out. Go for me. Crush that human who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. At the same time, the Shadow Clan young man heavily stomped on the giant beast. The giant beast felt pain and ruthlessly rushed towards Tianyang. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression didn't change. A trace of a contemptuous smile appeared on his face. You won't let this thing kill me. In the next moment, Tianyang punched out. Without the slightest bit of true essence or soul power, a simple punch containing pure physical strength punched out. Bang! The true essence from the artifact exploded in front of this punch. As for the giant beast, it was also struck by this punch. Chapter 8:15. One punch. The attack exploded, and the giant beast shattered. All of this was just the power of the physical body. The Shadow Clan youth was completely stunned. His entire body trembled as he stared at Tianyang in disbelief. How is this possible? The Shadow Clan youth howled. Previously, when Tianyang had fought against the 3 Shadow Mouse brothers of the Shadow Clan, he had also seen it. However, at that time, Tianyang had only displayed his powerful sword cultivation. He hadn't revealed the slightest bit of his physical strength, and Tianyang's cultivation was simply too confusing. The peak of half-step heavenly ascension. Generally speaking, a cultivator's physical strength would increase along with their cultivation. If a cultivator could suppress another cultivator in terms of cultivation, then their physical strength would also be similar. The reason why the Shadow Clan youth was so arrogant was because he had seen this point. In his opinion, Tianyang was only at the peak of half-step heavenly ascension. No matter how many fortuitous encounters he had, or how many heavenly treasures he had taken, his physical strength couldn't possibly be that strong. In this forbidden space, without true essence cultivation, he would definitely be at the bottom of the pile. And the result? However, reality had ruthlessly slapped him in the face. Damn it, don't think that just because you were able to block one of my attacks and the mount I casually collected, you could be so arrogant. The Shadow Clan youth roared. In the next moment, true essence flashed in his hand. A pitch-black bracer condensed true essence and fiercely shot towards Tianyang. Seeing this, Tianyang immediately understood. This bracer was the magic treasure that the Shadow Clan youth used to use his true essence. To be able to condense true essence in a forbidden space created by a top-grade spirit artifact, it seems that this bracer's level isn't low. Tianyang's lips curved upwards. Although he could forcefully activate his true essence, it wasn't the same as having a magic treasure to do it for him. Since this Shadow Clan youth had lost his mind and dared to mess with him, then he had to be prepared. He had to be prepared to be killed and have his treasure stolen. Resonant Fist. Seeing the Shadow Clan youth violently charging towards him, Tianyang smiled and punched out. Resonant Fist? Hearing this, the Shadow Clan youth was stunned. Then, waves of humiliation rose up in his heart. Tong Ming Fist. That was a fist technique of the lowest level. Tianyang actually used Tong Ming Fist to deal with him. Brat, I'm going to kill you. The Shadow Tribe youth was instantly enraged. He punched out. The arm guard shone with a dazzling radiance, and the true essence of a reaching heaven stage Tier 1 surged out. With a single punch, it tore through the void. Although the Shadow Clan youth cultivation far surpassed the first level of the Heaven Ascension realm, due to the restrictions of the Forbidden Space, he was only able to display the true essence of the first level of the Heaven Ascension realm. The Shadow Clan youth was also certain. Even if he were to exert the strength of a Heavenly Completion Stage 1 Dan, coupled with the strength of his fleshly body, he would be able to easily annihilate this so-called venerable demon before him. The next moment, the Shadow Tribe youth's fist and Tianyang's fist fiercely collided. Boom! The space within the Dragon Emperor Pagoda began to madly tremble. Even if it was a supreme great spirit artifact, it was unable to support the battle between the two. Cracks began to spread out, and the divine desolate heaven spirit art within Tianyang's body began to frantically revolve. Threads of true essence seemed to break through the restrictions of the forbidden space and burst out. However, Tianyang didn't use this opportunity to draw out the energy of his half-step heavenly completion realm peak. Instead, he flipped his wrist. Tong Ming Fist, 13 echoes. Boom! It was just an ordinary yellow-grade martial skill, but in Tianyang's hands, it produced a terrifying effect that could transform something rotten into something magical. With the support of Tianyang's powerful fleshly body, even a low-level fist technique like Tong Ming Fist could erupt with a terrifying effect that could shake the world. What? The Shadow Clan youth's expression changed greatly. He looked at Tianyang's fist in disbelief and let out an incredulous roar. Immediately after, his fist suddenly exploded. It turned into a bloody mist that filled the sky. How was this possible? The Shadow Clan youth roared, his face full of shock and fear. It was just Tong Ming Fist, a Tong Ming Fist that couldn't even be considered trash to him. But it had blown his right arm apart. Ew, your fleshly body strength. How can it be so strong? The Shadow Clan youth roared. Hearing this, Tianyang faintly smiled. But he didn't reply. His feet suddenly stepped on the ground, displaying the 10,000 Paths movement technique. Streaks of spatial power bloomed. Damn it! Seeing this, the Shadow Clan youth's expression changed greatly. He hastily roared, and his fleshly body's strength surged out, wanting to kill Tianyang. Shadow Clan's power, Shadow Blood Fusion. The Shadow Clan youth roared. He bit the tip of his tongue, and a mouthful of essence blood flew out. His shadow also suddenly disappeared. The essence blood that flew out fused with the dark shadow. The next moment, the Shadow Clan youth suddenly turned into a part of the blood and charged towards Tianyang. The Shadow Clan's inherited secret technique? It actually doesn't require true essence. Seeing this, Tianyang raised an eyebrow, slightly surprised. There were too many strange races in the Tianshao Great World. Even though Tianyang was an emperor in his previous life, he still didn't have a deep understanding of all kinds of strange races. The Shadow Clan actually had the powerful ability to transform themselves into shadows. This was something that Tianyang never imagined. However, you think I can't do anything to you just because you've turned into a shadow? How laughable! Tianyang faintly smiled. In the next moment, he grasped the power of the Divine Dragon and punched out. Dragon King Divine Fist. 10,000 dragons slaying gods. Tens of thousands of dragons erupted, turning into a seemingly endless rain of dragons. Countless dragons opened their ferocious mouths and charged towards the Shadow Clan youth. Clear dragon roars erupted from the mouths of the dragons. How is this possible? You don't have any true essence left. How can you use the Dragon King Divine Fist? Seeing this, the Shadow Clan youth's charging momentum instantly stopped. A mournful roar erupted from within. In the next moment, that drop of blood. Suddenly, it changed direction and charged towards the horizon. If it was outside, he might not be afraid of the Dragon King Divine Fist. However, it was a completely different story in the forbidden space. Even a most ordinary Dragon King Divine Fist was enough to instantly kill him. Want to run? Is it that simple? Seeing this, Tianyang faintly smiled. The Divine Dragon's dragon core erupted with tens of thousands of dragons. The roaring dragon increased its speed once more. Nearly half of the dragon force turned into a dragon force cage, trapping the Shadow Clan youth within. In the next moment, countless dragons attacked. No, don't kill me. If you kill me, the Shadow Clan won't let you off. Within the dragon cage, the Shadow Clan youth roared. Waves of shadow power erupted as he attempted to make a final struggle. However, Tianyang only faintly smiled. It's me. I won't let the Shadow Clan off. Snap! Tianyong snapped his fingers. That huge dragon rushed into the dragon force cage. Boom! A resplendent light erupted. The dragon power completely swallowed the shadow. Even if you have tens of thousands of magical abilities and infinite martial skills. Chapter 816. Breaking everything with brute force. These words describe the strength of the physical body. If one's physical body was strong enough, no matter how sharp the opponent's attack was, it would not be able to hurt one's skin. No matter how strong the opponent's defense was, they would not be able to withstand one punch. It was a pity that it was too difficult to reach this level. Even for those body refiners who pursued this realm, there might not be a single person who could reach this step in tens of millions of years. However, Tianyong did it in the restrictive spell space. He should be completely dead. Tianyong nodded slightly when he sensed that the life force in the dragon power cage had completely disappeared. He waved his hand and dispersed the dragon power. As expected, a cloud of blood that no longer resembled a human dissipated. The shadow force also disappeared completely. Only the bracer fell to the ground. It did not seem to have suffered much damage. You can still stay? Tianyong raised an eyebrow when he saw this. He waved his hand, and the dragon power brought the bracer back to Tianyong. The restrictive spell space restricted one's true yuan. However, it did not restrict other forms of energy. Tianyong's true yuan was the only thing that was weak. With the strength of the mystical dragon body, dragon power could definitely surpass any other dragon. Tianyong was confident that he could even take on the East Sea Dragon King. Spiritual energy was invincible in this world. Physical strength was also invincible. Tianyong might not know any other forms of energy. However, with the above 3 forms of energy, it would be a piece of cake for him to crush them. Although the Dragon Emperor Pagoda is a Khanate cardinal treasure, the true martial Dragon Emperor had thought it through before using it. Other tribes might not be able to use their powers. However, the dragon power of the dragon tribe can definitely be used to its fullest. Tianyong chuckled. The true martial Dragon Emperor was not a fool. He would not have thought that his tomb might become a relic in the future. Since that was the case, the best treasures should be left to those of the same tribe. The restrictive spell space was the best help to the dragon tribe. The true martial Dragon Emperor did not expect that there would be someone like me, who is not from the dragon tribe but can use the dragon power. Tianyong shook his head and chuckled. Then, he looked at the bracer in his hand. The arm guard was thin and long, but it didn't seem small when worn on the arm. It could actually expand and contract according to the size of the user's arm. It was completely black and shone with a metallic glow. It looked incomparably tough. Tianyong punched it. Surprisingly, it only left a dent that was only half a finger deep. It did not affect the arm guard at all. After all, Tianyong's fleshly body was strong enough to go head-to-head with an expert at the 4th level of the Heaven Ascension realm. The 4th-tier Heaven Ascension realm cultivators here had both true yuan and physical strength. However, in a normal battle, Tianyong wouldn't be able to fight against them with pure physical strength. That was why he hadn't been killed instantly. However, such explosive power was not weak at all. The armed guard had actually blocked it. Tianyong's interest was immediately piqued. His soul force surged, instantly erasing the Shadow Clan youth's soul mark and replacing it with his own. The next moment, a huge and complicated torrent of information suddenly surged into his mind. So this armed guard is the Shadow Clan's inherited holy treasure? Tianyong's eyes lit up, revealing a trace of surprise. This armed guard was called the Extreme Shadow Armed Guard. It was a part of the Shadow Clan's inherited holy treasure. The complete version of the Shadow Clan's inherited holy treasure was a set of battle armor called the Extreme Shadow Sacred Armor. According to Tianyong's speculation, it might also be a supreme grade spiritual weapon. However, this Extreme Shadow Sacred Armor had already been broken during the time of Yuan Emperor Shisu. It had been repaired with great difficulty, but it had also permanently lost a right arm. Therefore, the Extreme Shadow Sacred Armor had fallen from a supreme grade spiritual weapon to a semi-supreme grade spiritual weapon. Naturally, The complete version of the inherited holy treasure couldn't be taken out so easily. However, this guy could borrow a part of the holy treasure. With the strength of the Shadow Clan youth, if he didn't provoke experts at the level of Qi Yin Supreme, he could indeed do whatever he wanted in the Dragon Emperor's tomb. However, he had gone crazy and provoked. Even stronger than Autar Crimson Flame was the Heavenly Suns. Therefore, this part of the inherited holy treasure, the Extreme Shadow Arm Guard, which also had the power of an upper-grade spiritual weapon, fell into Tianyang's hands. Once again, a part of the inherited holy treasure of the Shadow Clan was permanently lost. Not bad. Although this Extreme Shadow Arm Guard is also an upper-grade spiritual weapon, its power is much stronger than ordinary upper-grade spiritual weapons. This arm guard can not only defend, but also strengthen the physical strength to a certain extent. It can also draw out a part of the vital essence to use. In this case, the power of the soul doesn't need to be opened easily. Tianyang chuckled. Then, he put the Extreme Shadow Arm Guard on his left arm in a grand manner. A light flashed on the Extreme Shadow Arm Guard, and it merged with Tianyang's left arm. It could be revealed at any time, but even if it wasn't, it still had a part of its power. Seeing this, Tianyang also showed a satisfied smile. He'd only just entered the Dragon Emperor Pagoda, but he'd already gained so much. Tianyang was naturally very satisfied. Then, Tianyang's figure flashed, and he disappeared thousands of miles away. Compared to this, the demon ancestor portrait was more important. Are you sure? A gloomy voice sounded in front of them. Shockingly, it was a powerful formation formed by numerous dragon marks. Outside the formation, the strongest of the Stone Clan, Shur Kaitian, the other Western region Buddhist sect member who'd entered, and an LV5 Ascension Realm strongman stood where they were. The one who'd spoken was Western region Buddhist sect's Foaming. However, at this time, these three Ascension Realm strongmen didn't have a shred of vital essence in their bodies. They only had physical strength. Buddhist power, like demonic power, relied on vital essence. It was different from dragon power and shadow power, which relied on bloodline power. Therefore, Foaming was now only an Ascension Realm strongman with a strong physical body. I'm sure. This is the legendary demon ancestor portrait that records the ancient demon ancestor's portrait. It has the secret technique of 7 stars. A third LV5 Ascension Realm strongman said. He held an ancient compass in his hand. The needle on it was firmly locked onto the center of the formation. He wore a tattered Taoist robe, and the Taoist hat on his head was riddled with holes. He looked extremely sloppy. However, even a strong man like Foaming had to treat this person seriously. This was because this person had discovered this place. If Tianyang and Ling Yuhan were here, they would definitely recognize him. This guy in the tattered Taoist robe was the sloppy Taoist that they'd met before entering the East Sea Dragon Palace. Ha ha ha. We Buddhists have been searching for hundreds of years. We finally found it. Demon Ancestor Portrait, secret technique of 7 stars. It's going to belong to us Buddhists soon. Hearing this, Foaming laughed loudly. Then, he looked at the Taoist priest. Then, please make your move. I was asked to do so. Of course. The Taoist priest nodded. Then, the compass in his hand suddenly exploded with light that filled the sky. Lines of formation runes seemed to appear in his eyes. A faint blue light shot out from the center of the compass. In the blink of an eye, it covered all the formations within 100 miles. These formations are all 6-level formations. It's not easy to break them. But in front of me, these tattered formations that have been operating for tens of millions of years are nothing. The Taoist priest said proudly. The next moment, he formed a seal with both hands. Chapter 817. Taoist Inheritance, Heavenly Elephant Formation Breaking Spell. The Taoist priest roared, and a series of mysterious seals condensed in his hands. Seeing this, Shur Kaitian and Foaming Z were shocked. Is this the Taoist inheritance? It's said that the Heavenly Elephant Formation Breaking Spell is the most powerful method to break formations in this world. It's extremely mysterious. I didn't expect this Taoist priest to know it. Foaming Z was extremely shocked, and a trace of jealousy appeared in his heart. Break it. The Taoist priest condensed the seal and pushed his hands forward. The seal violently blasted toward a layer of formations. Beams of demonic light flashed across the layers of formations, and the formations seemed to be shaken a little. Seeing this, Foaming Z, Shi Kaitian, and the Taoist priest were all delighted. Although the formations were shaken, it didn't mean that they could be broken. However, it was much better than no reaction from before. Taoist priest, please continue. Foaming Z forced himself to suppress his excitement. Hearing this, the Taoist priest nodded. His expression became serious again, and he condensed another seal. In this forbidden space, there was no way to use vital essence. It was extremely difficult to break the formation. If it weren't for the fact that the moving mountain Taoist lineage was very special and didn't require vital essence to use, they would probably be helpless here. Heavenly Elephant Formation breaking spell. Break it again. The Taoist priest growled, and his face turned slightly pale. Using a powerful technique like the Heavenly Elephant Formation breaking spell consumed a lot of energy, even for him. However, the Heavenly Elephant Formation breaking spell was the legendary inheritance of the moving mountain Taoist. Its power was indeed extraordinary. After several consecutive Heavenly Elephant Formation breaking spells, the formation that had existed for millions of years was finally broken. Boom! Beams of light bloomed on the formation. In the next moment, the formation patterns turned into energy that filled the sky and were released. Ha ha! It's finally broken. Seeing this, Foaming Z laughed loudly. He looked at the demon ancestor portrait that had once loomed in the depths of the formation. He didn't hide the greed on his face. Thank you. Shi Kaitian also nodded. This is only the first step. It's not that easy to get the demonic ancestral drawing. The Taoist shook his head and looked at the demonic ancestral portrait with a serious expression. The demonic ancestral portrait itself is not something that can be taken away so easily. Who cares? It's just a dead thing. How could it possibly fight against us reaching heaven state almighties? This beast, ancestral beast, drawing his mind. Fu Ming sneered. In the next moment, he ignored Shi Kaitian and the Taoist priest and rushed over. Seeing this, the Taoist's expression remained calm. He frowned as he looked at the demonic ancestral drawing. As for Shi Kaitian, he was unwilling to be outdone and charged towards the demon ancestral portrait as well. Fine, I'll give this demon ancestral portrait a try too. Why are there so many fluctuations all of a sudden? At this moment, Tianyang, who was rushing to the location of the demon ancestral portrait, frowned. Could it be that something happened to the demon ancestral portrait? Thinking of this, Tianyang could no longer remain calm. Right now, he was equivalent to the world's most muscular man. He had unparalleled strength. However, this strength lacked a guide. Relying on his fists, he could only defeat those who were caught off guard. If the other party had a defense, the effect would be greatly reduced. The sole secret technique recorded in the demon ancestral portrait was a blade that could unleash Tianyang's strength to the extreme. If this thing was taken away by someone else, Tianyang would be heartbroken. As expected, the formation has been broken. Dozens of seconds later, Tianyang looked at the broken formation runes below him. His expression was extremely unpleasant. He did not expect that there would be someone faster than him. However, the demon ancestral portrait is still there. It seems that no one has taken it away. Could it be that they're being controlled by the demon ancestral portrait? Tianyang's eyes flashed with a strange light as he muttered to himself. He did not think that the group of people who had the ability to destroy the formation within 100 miles would give up after failing a few times. Perhaps the demon ancestral portrait had some ability, such as establishing a test and sucking that group of people in. Then, Tianyang opened his interspatial bag. Ling Yuhan appeared. This demon ancestral portrait is probably something related to a test. Your demon bloodline is the strongest among the demons. Perhaps you can give it a try, Tianyang said. Ling Yuhan nodded. Then, the two stepped into the formation. In an instant, light and shadow changed. Everything around him had changed. In the Dragon Emperor Pagoda, the scene of the wasteland completely disappeared. In its place was an ancient battlefield of the stars. Kill. Damn demons. How dare you invade our Tianxiao great world? You're courting death. Oomph. Lowly natives of this world. You dare to resist and not submit to us demons? You're the ones courting death. Angry roars rang in Tianyang's ears. The next moment, in front of Tianyang, it became a battlefield of thousands of races. Tianyang's expression changed slightly. He could see that this was not an illusion created by the demon ancestral portrait. It was more like a certain period of history that the demon ancestral portrait had experienced. Could this be the first time in the ancient times that the races of the Tianxiao great world joined forces to invade? Tianyang's expression changed slightly. At this moment, a wild laughter rang in Tianyang's ears. Haha, there's a human boy who's alone here. Kill him. In the next moment, a terrifying true essence axe blade fell from the sky and slashed towards Tianyang. F***CK. Seeing this, Tianyang could not help but curse. He instinctively blocked with his left hand. Bang! Tianyang's arm went numb from the shock. However, the person who attacked him was not in a good state either. The axe, which was comparable to a middle-grade spiritual weapon, had a huge hole on its blade. It looked as if it had smashed into a tough rock. Damn it, my axe! A furious roar rang in Tianyang's ears. In the next moment, another strong wind came. Tianyang reacted this time. Using the myriad paths movement technique, his figure flashed and left the attack range of the axe blade. He appeared behind the demon who attacked. Then, the corners of his mouth curled up, and he punched out. Looks like I have to go through this if I want to get the demon ancestral portrait. Boom! This demon, who was only at the Spirit Sea realm, could not block Tianyang's full-strength punch at all. His entire body exploded in mid-air along with his axe. His body turned into a cloud of blood mist. What? The surrounding demons also noticed the situation here, and their expressions changed drastically. Ingo is dead. It's a human boy. A demon's face darkened. He freed his hand and charged towards Tianyang. How dare you kill a member of the demon race? Boy, you're courting death. You're the one courting death. Tianyang chuckled. He shifted his feet and dodged this person's attack. Then he punched back. Boom. Chapter 818. 2 punches. 2 Sea of Soul Realm demons exploded. Seeing Tianyang's powerful performance, everyone on the battlefield was stunned. No one knew where this guy had popped out from, but this guy was just that strong. Good. Little brother, you're good. You're so powerful. Among the allied forces of Sky Cloud's continent, a general who looked neither human nor ghost laughed loudly. Tianyang nodded, then entered the battlefield again. He was in deep thought. He realized, even though he was now in the test set by the demon ancestor portrait, however, he still couldn't use his true essence. It seems like I'm still in the Dragon Emperor Pagoda. That's why I can use the restrictive spell. But it's a headache, Tianyang muttered to himself. These demons had demonic chi, but he didn't have true origin. It was quite painful, of course. Tianyang didn't care. Without true origin, he could still use the power of a LV2 or LV3 Ascension Realm demon. Damn it, why don't I have any true origin here? An angry roar erupted from the center of the battlefield. Foaming Z, who was holding the prayer beads but couldn't use any of its power, roared in anger. There weren't many Ascension Realm demons on the battlefield. Foaming thought he could kill a bunch of them and get the demon ancestor portrait's approval. But there was no true origin here. Buddha's power relied on true origin. Without true origin, there was no Buddha's power. Human die. At this moment, an angry roar rang in Foaming's ears. His expression changed, and he was about to use the prayer beads to block it. However, a palm the size of 3 people suddenly attacked and sent Foaming flying. Blood spurted out of Foaming Z's mouth. The demon ancestor portrait had tricked him. There's still no true origin. Ling Yuhan held the Cold Sky sword with a serious expression. She slashed with the sword. An array of frost streaked across the sky, killing a demon. But it's okay. It's not that bad. Ling Yuhan muttered to herself. She had the nine-nether saint body and the bloodline of the nine-tailed moon fox. Although she still relied heavily on vital essence, she would not become a weakling without it. Her demonic power could be based on her true yuan or the power of her bloodline. However, the latter would consume more energy. But now, consumption? It was much better than not being able to consume it at all. Ice Emperor's heavenly sword technique, first form. Ling Yuhan let out a low roar and slashed out again. Demonic power surged as peak level 9 Sea of Soul, Realm, Zhun Yuan shot out, instantly killing a demon. Boom! 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 3 terrifying explosions echoed throughout the battlefield. This extremely intense battlefield instantly fell silent. Everyone turned their gazes towards the source of the voice. A 5-meter-tall stone golem revealed its true form, waving its blood-stained fists as it rampaged through the battlefield. It was even more barbaric than Tianyang. With the talent of the stone golem, it was not afraid of these demons who were weaker than it. Every time he punched out, he could take away a large number of lives. It could be said that in this battlefield, with the bloodline of the stone golem, Shi Kaikian's physical strength was far beyond that of ordinary cultivators. He was second only to Tianyang, the most suitable one. Taoist inheritance, earth escape technique. The Taoist priest formed a seal with his hands and let out a low roar with a solemn look. The next moment, an astonishing flow of earth suddenly flew up from the ground and wrapped the Taoist priest in it. Then, the earth flow was pulled into the ground. The Taoist priest actually disappeared into the earth. There's actually such a method. Seeing this, the demons who had finally trapped the Taoist priest, who had slaughtered a large number of them, were shocked and said. At this moment, a powerful seal appeared behind them. It bombarded their backs fiercely. Puff! Mouthfuls of blood spurted out, and the powerful demons were instantly blown away. The Taoist priest took advantage of the situation to pursue and actually harvested a few more heads. This demon ancestor portrait, after killing the demons, the Taoist priest stood on the battlefield and frowned slightly. This thing can't be killed completely? Tianyang had already lost count of how many times he had punched. In short, every time he swung his fist, a demon would die in his hands. Now, the number of demons who had died under his fist was at least tens of thousands. However, the demons in this ancient battlefield were still about the same as before. Although my Dragon King Divine Fist and other fist techniques, even my Sword Dao, have been sharpened a lot through these battles. But these have nothing to do with the demon ancestor portrait, Tianyang muttered to himself. No, this demon ancestor portrait is definitely not as simple as killing demons. The demon ancestor portrait records the demon ancestor, and there are many soul secret techniques. If it wanted to test combat strength, the test would have been over long ago. Since we still can't go out, then it must be the demon ancestor and the soul secret techniques. Tianyang muttered to himself and quickly grasped the main points. A domain automatically formed under his feet that isolated everything, and he sat cross-legged on the ground. In his hand, the mark formed by the blurry map shone slightly. The demon ancestor, according to the records, is the ancestor of the demon clan. The power of the soul is abnormally strong. I don't have the bloodline of the demon clan. Then, if I want to break out of this situation, I can only use the power of the soul. Tianyang's eyes lit up slightly as he found the key to breaking out of this situation. In the next moment, Tianyang raised his head and looked at the stars in the sky. Among the dazzling stars, there were 7 stars that were the brightest. Those 7 stars are the key to breaking out of this situation. Tianyang instantly understood. In the next moment, Wu Zun's power of the soul gushed out wildly. Like 7 giant dragons, they rushed towards the 7 stars in the sky. This was also because Tianyang had too little information. If Tianyang knew that the soul secret technique recorded in the demon ancestor portrait was called the 7 stars secret technique, then he would have solved it from the beginning. Boom! At the moment when the soul power that had split into 7 terrifying, enormous dragons collided with the 7 stars, the soul power of the 7 stars. The entire ancient battlefield in the starry sky suddenly shook. Everything in the surroundings began to collapse. Sure enough, I was right. Seeing this, Tianyang's eyes lit up, and he increased the power of the soul again. The 7 stars became brighter and brighter. The surrounding ancient battlefield became more and more fragile. Finally, 7 stars, dazzling to the extreme, the ancient battlefield completely collapsed. The 7 giant dragons formed by Tianyang's power of the soul also merged into the 7 stars at this moment. Everything around suddenly became distorted. Tianyang's figure also disappeared from the spot. Huh? Tianyang looked around, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. His surroundings were no longer the ancient battlefield from before. Instead, a starry sky. At this moment, a picture suddenly appeared in front of Tianyang. On it, there was a peerless man controlling the stars, showing an unparalleled, domineering aura. This is Chapter 819, The Demon Ancestor Painting. After going through so much, Tianyang finally found the inheritance of the demons. Is this person the demon ancestor? He's indeed handsome. Tianyang muttered to himself as he looked at the man in the painting with a domineering aura. In the ancient era, the Tianshao Great World's restrictions on cultivation were not as harsh as now. At that time, the strongest experts, such as the Crimson Dragon Wuzun, were all at the Wuzun realm. This demon ancestor was clearly the same. That's right. At that moment, the painting in front of him released a faint blue light, and a voice that could not be distinguished between a man and a woman sounded. This is the ancestor of the demons, the great demon ancestor Myriad Star. Tianyang raised his brows when he saw that. He did not expect the demon ancestor painting to have an artifact spirit. However, Tianyang's interest was piqued by the artifact spirit's words. Demon ancestor Myriad Star? That's the true title of the demon ancestor? Of course. The demon ancestor painting flickered with another blue light. The demon ancestor possesses the 7-star secret skill and controls endless stars. Every wisp of his soul power is a resplendent planet. In the ancient era, when the demon ancestor was enraged, the heavens and earth would collapse and the stars would fall. Only the fiend supremacy of the demon race, the Crimson Dragon Wuzun, and existences at the level of the Dragon Emperor could fight against him. The rest are just ants in front of the demon ancestor. The demon ancestor painting's artifact spirit said. Tianyang nodded slightly when he heard that. He could tell. If even a demon ancestor painting that was not refined by the demon ancestor could have such power, the demon ancestor himself must be even stronger. Tianyang secretly speculated. Although the demon ancestor Myriad Star was not as strong as Shuntian Wuzun, he was not far off. The heaven continent of the ancient era was truly incomparable to the current one. However, I've never seen someone as talented as you. You're only 20 years old, but you already have such a cultivation level. I'm afraid even the demon ancestor could not compare to you back then. The demon ancestor painting's artifact spirit said, and released a faint blue light that covered Tianyang's body. However, it only lasted for an instant. Tianyang's soul power automatically shook and scattered the blue light. The demon ancestral painting's artifact spirit's surprised voice rang out. His soul power is even more terrifying. He's only 20 years old, but his soul power is already close to the great demonic ancestor's peak. Could it be that the Tianshao Great World is already so powerful? The demon ancestor drawing sighed. It was built in ancient times and had witnessed the prosperity and decline of ancient times. Due to the limitations of the Tianshao Great World, the martial arts within the Tianshao Great World were actually declining bit by bit. However, in a time that was tens of millions of years later than the primordial era, there was actually such a powerful person who directly refreshed the demon ancestral portrait's understanding of the outside world. Haha, Tianyang chuckled but did not explain. Then, what do I need to do to take you away? Tianyang chuckled as soul power surged in his hand. The extreme shadow arm guard released traces of energy, as if it could draw out Tianyang's vital essence at any time. In a short moment, Tianyang recovered to his peak state. You're quite direct. The demon ancestor drawing was slightly taken aback. You can see through the mystery of the ancient battlefield, which means you've passed the first test. And in the previous test of strength, you've passed the second test perfectly. Now, you only need to pass the third test, and you can have me. The demon ancestor drawing's artifact spirit said. The next moment, a terrifying pressure erupted from the demon ancestor drawing. In the outside world, bang, 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 bang. The sound of heavy objects falling to the ground rang out. The Heavenly Ascension Realm experts who were still fighting in the ancient battlefield were all expelled by the space. What's going on? Foaming Z was covered in blood. The prayer beads in his hand were still in the process of being thrown out. He was shocked to find that the demon he was about to kill had disappeared. They were surrounded by the forbidden space of the Dragon Emperor Pagoda again. It seems like the ancient battlefield is trying to expel us. Sure, Kaitian muttered to himself. His fists were also covered in blood, even though he was a special life form. However, the continuous fighting had also exhausted him. His combat strength had weakened significantly. It seems that I don't need to stay any longer. The Taoist priest's eyes flashed. He sighed and performed a mysterious step technique, disappearing from the spot instantly. He had just discovered the mystery of the ancient battlefield's starry sky. He was only one step away from calculating the position of the 7 stars and breaking the ancient battlefield. However, it seemed that someone was one step ahead of him. The 3 of them had been expelled. This was the best proof that someone was faster than them. It seems that Master has succeeded. However, unlike the shock of the other 3 people, although Ling Yuhan was kicked out, when he looked around, he actually did not discover Tianyang's figure. She was extremely excited. This proved that Tianyang had broken the ancient battlefield and could have obtained the demon ancestor drawing. What? However, Ling Yuhan's exclamation attracted the attention of Shi Kaitian and Foaming Z, who were not far away. Shi Kaitian's expression was normal, but Foaming Z's face instantly darkened. 8 steps to overtake the toad. Foaming Z growled and instantly took 8 steps forward. His speed soared to the extreme, and he came in front of Ling Yuhan. His face was terrifyingly ferocious. He looked at Ling Yuhan with a murderous aura. What did you say? Who succeeded? Foaming Z roared. A terrifying murderous aura, which was completely opposite to the kasaya he was wearing, erupted from his body. Feeling this murderous aura, Ling Yuhan's face instantly turned pale. She did not expect that a Buddhist would release such a terrifying murderous aura. Speak. If you don't speak, I'll tear you to pieces. Foaming Z roared. His eyes turned blood red as if they were about to spit fire. The demon ancestor drawing was a treasure passed down from ancient times. It recorded the demon ancestor's sole secret technique, the 7 stars secret technique. He was only a little bit away from obtaining such a treasure. In the end, he missed it because of one person. How could Foaming Z not be angry? Get lost. At this moment, Ling Yuhan's face suddenly turned cold. Perhaps Foaming Z and Shi Kaitian were very strong. But that was in the outside world. In the forbidden space, Ling Yuhan, who had the strongest bloodline power of the demon clan, the god spirit bloodline, and the 9-tailed heavenly moon fox, was like Tianyang. She was not afraid of anyone. Ice Emperor Heavenly Sword Technique, 3rd style. Ling Yuhan uttered a roar as streams of bloodline force were unleashed. A sword light with an extremely cold aura broke through Foaming Z's blockade and shot toward him. Seeing this, Foaming Z's pupils constricted. What? The 3rd stage is the demon ancestor drawing floated in front of Tianyang, and his body released waves of powerful aura one after another. As for Tianyang, he did not know what was happening outside. Instead, he looked at the demon ancestor drawing and had a premonition in his heart. Chapter 820. Secret Technique of 7 Stars. Tianyang's expression changed. In the next moment, the demon ancestor portrait shone with a blue light and explained to Tianyang. The secret technique of 7 stars is the strongest soul secret technique created by demon ancestor Wanqing. The soul is extremely mysterious, but demon ancestor Wanqing can create a powerful secret technique that can turn soul energy into stars. This shows how powerful demon ancestor Wanqing is. The demon ancestor portrait said with respect. Then it became serious again and explained. As the name suggests, the secret technique of 7 stars is a secret technique that can turn soul energy into 7 stars and explode with extreme power. The secret technique of 7 stars is divided into 8 levels. The first level, 1 star. The power of 1 star is comparable to the full power of a soul attack of a LV 7 Heaven Ascension Realm expert. Of course, it is the most superficial kind. The second level, 2 stars. With the power of 2 stars, it is not difficult to destroy mountains with a single thought. The third level, 3 stars. The seventh level, 7 stars. The power of 7 stars can change the world with a thought. The 8th level, 7 stars all out, shatter the heavens and destroy the gods. 7 stars all out, shatter the heavens and destroy the gods. Hearing these words, Tianyang's pupils shrank to the extreme. How bold and daring did one have to be to use these words in a secret technique? How powerful must this secret technique be to be able to achieve this? In the past, demon ancestor Wanqing relied on the 8th level of the secret technique of 7 stars to instantly kill 3 demon emperor and severely injure a demon sovereign. This power is not much weaker than Crimson Dragon Wu Zun's 9-tempered dragon body. However, one is permanent, while the other is instantaneous. Heavenly Sun's expression changed slightly when he heard the demon ancestor portrait's explanation. According to the demon ancestor portrait, the power of the secret technique of 7 stars could be called the world's #1 soul secret technique. Why would such a soul secret technique be used as the third test? Ordinary people wanted to find the demon ancestor portrait for the secret technique of 7 stars. The demon ancestor portrait itself was just a portrait of the demon ancestor's face. How could it be so easy to comprehend the secret technique of 7 stars before obtaining the demon ancestor portrait? Hearing Tianyang's question, the demon ancestral portrait flickered and spoke with a hint of surprise. I didn't expect you to think of this, but since you've asked, I'll answer you. That's because in order to learn the 7-star secret technique, one's soul energy must be condensed to a terrifying degree. However, it's already difficult to gather soul energy in the first place. The requirements for the secret art of the 7 stars are even greater. If one were to fail in cultivating it, one's soul might explode, turning one into a fool. Might, the demon ancestor Wanqing. However, when Tianyang heard this, he felt as if 10,000 horses were galloping through his heart. Wanqing, Wanqing? Why didn't you tell me earlier, or Wanqing? But if you want to learn the secret technique of 7 stars, this is your only chance. The test of the demon ancestor portrait was set by the demon ancestor. Unless your strength has surpassed demon ancestor Wanqing's, you won't be able to take the demon ancestor portrait away. The demon ancestor portrait said. Tianyang calmed down after hearing this. Since Tianyang had taken the Dragon Emperor's token from the 9-tailed demon emperor, there was no reason for him not to bring the demon ancestor portrait back since he had seen it. Besides, this was the secret technique of 7 stars. Tianyang desperately needed it. I'll give you an hour to think about it. After all, even the geniuses of the ancient era had to prepare for 10 years before they could learn the secret technique of 7 stars. Even so, dozens of people were dumbfounded. There are less than 100 people who have learned the secret technique of 7 stars. The demon ancestor portrait said. However, before the demon ancestor portrait could finish, Tianyang spoke. I agree. The demon ancestor portrait swallowed the words that he wanted to say. His body shone with astonishment as he looked at Tianyang. Are you sure? I haven't said that the failure rate of learning the secret technique of 7 stars is 90%. Even many of the descendants of demon progenitor Myriad Star failed. I agree, Tianyong still said. His eyes shone with determination. Wealth came from danger, and strength was even more so. If one had to be overcautious and afraid of everything when learning the secret technique, then what was the point of learning it? Go home and farm. Cultivation, not for longevity, not for immortality, only for the sake of reaching the pinnacle, vigorous and vigorous. All right. Seeing the determination in Tianyong's eyes, the demon ancestor portrait trembled and then nodded. Did such boldness really belong to a 20-year-old youth? Although the demon ancestor portrait's life aura detection would never be wrong. But the demon ancestor portrait felt that the youth in front of him was not a weak cultivator who had not reached the heaven ascension realm. Instead, he was a paragon who could dominate an area in the ancient era. Catch it. The demon ancestor portrait quickly came back to his senses, and a light ball belonging to the secret technique of 7 stars flew out. It sank into Tianyong's glabella. A torrent of information also began to rush into Tianyong's mind. Such a method of inheritance? The methods of the ancient era can't be judged by common sense. Tianyong was slightly shocked. Then he sat down cross-legged and entered a state of cultivation. Seeing that Tianyong had begun to cultivate, the demon ancestor portrait's body flickered for a moment, and then a faint voice sounded. When you cultivate to the 3rd level and condense 3 stars, you can pass the test and obtain the demon ancestor portrait. However, the stronger the soul power, the harder it is to cultivate the secret technique of 7 stars, the soul power of the Wuzun realm. Dazzling, Tianyong seemed to be in the starry sky, surrounded by extremely dazzling stars. At the entry level of the secret technique of 7 stars, you must first comprehend your own soul power before you can condense 7 stars. Tianyong mumbled. Looks like I've succeeded in comprehending it now. Everything around him was Tianyong's soul power, as strong as the stars, as dazzling as the sun, and even more so than the sun. Even with the demon ancestor portrait's vision, it did not expect that. Tianyong had only tried to comprehend it for the first time, but he had already succeeded in comprehending his own spiritual energy. Moreover, this soul power was so dazzling. The prides of the ancient era all had extremely terrifying soul power. However, it took them a full week to cultivate the secret technique of 7 stars for the first time before they succeeded. The soul power that they comprehended was at most a small star. It was completely incomparable to Tianyong's vast soul power that seemed to be in the starry sky. Then, the next step is to condense my soul power and form one of the 7 stars. Tianyong's expression turned slightly serious. Looking at the endless starry sky around him, he had a thought. The enormous soul power automatically flew over, forming an extremely vast soul land in front of Tianyong. Condense for me. Tianyong let out a low roar. The next moment, the soul power that was like a land in front of him began to surge rapidly. It was crazily compressing towards the center. Tianyong also felt it. That was an extremely terrifying pressure. P.S. 19 test papers, 32 pages of practice questions, 2 essays, and N retests. The author has been ganked by homework. Chapter 821. The Secret Technique of 7 Stars. The formation of the first star was of utmost importance. 7 stars, Dubhi, Merak, Fekta, Migrez, Alioth, Mizar, and Alkaid. The first star was the Dubhi. The Dubhi, the center of the 7 stars, was also the most powerful star. The strength of the Dubhi would determine the strength of the 7 stars. This point was also mentioned in the message that the light ball sent to Tianyong. The Dubhi star is the leader of the 7 stars. If I want to quickly condense the 7 stars and pass this stage, I don't need to condense the Dubhi star to be too powerful. However, I want the secret technique of 7 stars for battle. The stronger the first star, the stronger the power that the secret technique of 7 stars can erupt. If I want to achieve the realm of the 7 stars, I must do it to the extreme. Tianyong's eyes were calm as he looked at the Dubhi star that was constantly condensing in front of him. The expression on his face gradually became determined. I've decided. I'll use all my strength for the first star. With this thought, the condensation of soul power was even faster. The pressure that Tianyang was under also became even more terrifying. Previously, Tianyang's soul power was a sea of stars. Now he wanted to merge the entire starry sky into a star. How crazy was this? Even the founder of the secret technique of 7 stars, Myriad Star Demon Ancestor, used at most 1/3 of Wu Zun's soul power when he created the first star. This made him the best of his generation and was known as Myriad Star Demon Ancestor. And at this moment, Tianyang, he wanted to surpass Myriad Star Demon Ancestor by 3 times from the beginning. Condense. With the passage of time, the soul power in this star had also reached an extreme. However, the soul power from the entire starry sky was injected into it. There was still a huge gap. Break! Tianyang shouted in a low voice. The embryonic form of the W star in front of him instantly exploded. Tianyang suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. However, at this moment, compared to before, more soul power was injected into this embryonic form. Break again. Just as his soul power filled the first star, Tianyang bellowed once more. Boom! The newly formed W star exploded once again. The soul power that filled the sky set off a terrifying soul storm. In the outside world, the cross-legged Tianyang still had his eyes closed, but he spat out a mouthful of blood. The soul and the physical body were closely related. Now that the soul had suffered such a great change, the physical body naturally couldn't be spared. The demon ancestor diagram's face instantly changed. He looked at Tianyang, whose face had suddenly turned pale, but whose soul was still fluctuating. He instantly thought of a possibility. That fellow isn't satisfied with just mastering the 7-star secret art. Instead, he wants to perfect it. The demon ancestor drawing exclaimed in shock. Even the geniuses of the ancient era did not have the guts to do so. The stronger the first step, the more difficult it would be to condense the next stars. Of the few demons who had successfully cultivated the secret art of 7 stars, none of them pursued perfection on the first star. Crazy. That fellow is crazy. It's already extremely difficult for someone with Wu Zun's soul power to cultivate the secret art of 7 stars. That fellow actually wants to perfect it. The demon ancestor diagram shouted angrily. Rays of blue light shone on its body. If Tianyang died, it would be a long time before the next capable person could take him away. If that fellow only had the soul power of a heaven ascension realm, I could still intervene. But his soul power is even stronger than the demon ancestors when he was young. The demon ancestor diagram sighed. Now, we can only resign ourselves to fate. Boom, boom, boom. The newly formed W star exploded once again. Waves of soul storms almost tore Tianyang's entire sea of soul apart. Tianyang's eyes were completely red under his tightly shut eyelids. The first star was still the same size as before. However, the soul energy contained in it was countless times more powerful than before. Just a little more. The last 1%. Tianyang's eyes were blood red as he stared at the W star in front of him. At this moment, he had already left demon ancestor Myriad Star in the dust. In theory, the secret art of 7 stars could contain all the soul power in the first star. However, even demon ancestor Myriad Star himself could not do that. How can anyone do it? However, Tianyang had surpassed the creator. He had reached an unprecedented level of power. Before Tianyang could detonate it again, Tianyang spat out another mouthful of blood. This happened at the soul level. No matter how strong the divine dragon body was, it could not make up for it. 2 consciousnesses appeared in Tianyang's mind. Give up. You're already stronger than everyone. Even the creator of the secret art of 7 stars, demon ancestor Myriad Star, is only 1/3 of you. This is just a soul secret art, not a great Tao divine power. Why do you have to do this? Voices sounded in Tianyang's ears, constantly bewitching Tianyang. Indeed, if Demon Ancestor 2 knew of Tianyang's battle results, he would definitely be dumbfounded. 3 times stronger than Demon Ancestor Myriad Star. Such a terrifying result was enough to look down on all of history. Even if he gave up, no one would say anything. On the contrary, some people would think with admiration that Tianyong knew his limits. But self-awareness is for the weak. Tianyong gritted his teeth and forcefully controlled the soul power in Dubhy Star that did not seem to belong to him. Either you don't succeed in cultivating the secret art, or you do your best. Retreating in the face of danger is the behavior of a coward. Tianyong roared. The next moment, the sea of soul power was detonated again. Boom! A terrifying explosion erupted in Tianyong's soul sea. Tianyong felt everything in front of him turn white. In the outside world, he was actually able to hear this terrifying loud sound. Demon Ancestor 2's expression changed drastically as he hurriedly looked at Tianyong. This was the sound of soul power going out of control. Could it be that this young man was also defeated? One last thing, get in. Dubhy Star condense. At this moment, Tianyong suddenly opened his eyes and laughed. The soul power that had once again turned into an endless starry sky no longer had any obstruction at this moment. Like flowing water, it flowed into Dubhy Star. Tao begets one, one begets two begets three begets all things. Tianyong's actions of detonating his soul power time and time again to turn it into a starry sky unintentionally coincided with the Tao of all things. Therefore, in the final destruction and establishment, Tianyong's soul power actually sublimated again. Dubhy Star condense. Dubhy Star condense. Fecta Star condense. This time, 3 stars were condensed. Open the power of 3 stars. Chapter 8:22. With one thought, 3 stars were formed. Even Tianyong himself was shocked. According to his plan, even if he infused all of his soul power into the first star, he would still be able to do so. As for the remaining 2 stars, he would need to cultivate in seclusion for a long time before he could condense them. As a result, this sudden increase in soul power not only strengthened the Dubhy Star again, but also opened the remaining 2 stars. If the countless demon clan Heaven's Prides in ancient times who died or were injured in order to cultivate the secret technique of 7 stars knew about this, they would probably have the heart to chop Tianyong to death. In order to cultivate the secret technique of 7 stars, they had paid a huge price. But in the end, the Heavenly Sun had naturally opened 3 stars. However, the price Tianyong had paid was no less than those Heaven's Prides of the Demon Clan. In fact, it was even more than that. The only difference was that they had failed while Tianyong had succeeded. Infant Soul Fruit Tree, Golden Infant Soul Fruit. Tianyong had just regained his senses when he felt a wave of dizziness coming from his sea of soul. This feeling had not been felt for many years. He did not expect that the overconsumption of soul power would actually appear again. Yes, the infant soul fruit tree's reaction was not slow. It immediately opened the space door of the Earth Emperor's spiritual herb garden and handed 3 golden infant soul fruits to Tianyong. Tianyong did not hesitate. He directly opened his mouth and swallowed the 3 golden infant soul fruits. The moment the 3 golden fruits entered Tianyong's mouth, they turned into the purest medicinal liquid. Tianyong only felt that his whole body was soaked in a moderately hot spring. It was so comfortable that all the pores on his body were about to open up. He exhaled a long breath. The turbid air in his body was expelled. Although I only have the power of 3 stars now, I have a feeling that I am not inferior to those who have opened 4 stars. Tianyong closed his eyes and relaxed for more than 10 seconds before he recovered. Feeling the huge soul power contained in the 3 stars in his sea of soul, his heart was surging. Finally, he had a decent secret technique of soul. Henceforth, if he encountered an opponent at the level of the Shadow Clan youth, a single 7-star secret technique would be enough to annihilate them. Even if he encountered an enemy like the Great Elder of the Ancient Shrine or Autarch Scarlet Flame, a soul attack would be enough to stun them for a moment. Losing one's mind in battle could be fatal. Now, if I were to encounter Autarch Scarlet Flame, even if he had recovered to his peak state, I would still have confidence in defeating him. Kill him. Tianyong muttered to himself and then slowly woke up. Tianyong already had the ability to condense the fourth star, Migres star. However, Tianyong didn't want to. After all, just now, when he opened 3 stars with a single thought, he had almost exhausted all of his spiritual energy. Even though he had a few golden infant soul fruits to replenish his spiritual energy, it was still difficult to replenish the energy that he had used up. Since the first 3 pills had been perfected, the fourth one had to be perfect as well. Furthermore, with Tianyang's current 7-star secret art cultivation, the power of 3 stars far exceeded that of an average 4-star. You succeeded? However, Tianyang's lightning-fast action stunned the demon ancestor portrait. How many days had it been since Tianyang entered the state of cultivation? Not even a week. To successfully cultivate a secret art in a week, that was simply nonsense. However, once he started cultivating without condensing a star, it was absolutely impossible to get out of the state of cultivation. Looking at Tianyang now, he didn't look like he had gone crazy from failing in cultivation. In other words, Tianyang condensed the W star in just a week. It simply subverted the demon ancestor portrait's worldview. That's right. Thank you. Tianyang smiled slightly and nodded. He was also somewhat grateful to the demon ancestor portrait, although the demon ancestor portrait was also acting under orders. After all, it was it who gave Tianyang the 7-star secret art. There was no conflict between acting under orders and being grateful to the other party. Tianyang wouldn't be arrogant enough to think that this was what the demon ancestor portrait deserved. Not bad, not bad. You managed to condense the W star in just a week. You probably changed your target after failing. However, it's important to know one's own limits. You're not bad to be able to condense a star so quickly. Keep it up. As long as you condense 2 more stars, you can take me away. The demon ancestor portrait laughed. Ever since it was brought to this godforsaken place by the true martial dragon emperor, the true martial dragon emperor had done many things to it. There was no other reason but for the 7-star secret art. However, the demon ancestor portrait contained a trace of the demon ancestor's power, which was far from what the true martial dragon emperor could compare to. Therefore, the true martial dragon emperor had been unable to break the seal. However, due to the true martial dragon emperor's overbearing strength, the demon ancestor portrait couldn't pull it into the ancient battlefield, even if it wanted to. Therefore, after the dragon emperor snatched the demon ancestor portrait from the demon tribe, it was a tragedy. The demon ancestor portrait's boring and tragic life that had lasted for millions of years began. Now that he saw someone who had the potential to take it away, he was extremely excited. Hearing that, Tianyang was taken aback. He waved his hand. In his soul ocean, the newly condensed Dubhe star, Merak star, and Fecta star appeared. Each star contained an incomparably vast soul power. The demonic ancestral painting had no doubt that these 3 stars were all extremely powerful. Each star had a terrifying power that could annihilate the soul of a heavenly ascension realm elite. However, the moment the demon ancestor portrait saw the 3 stars, it was stunned. The entire demon ancestor portrait was dumbfounded. Dubhe Merak Fecta. That's right, the demon ancestor portrait said in a daze. Its voice was somewhat mechanical. The blue light that had been flickering around had also stiffened. It's true, the power of 3 stars. I thought you said that the 3 stars were successfully condensed. Tianyang scratched his head, feeling a little embarrassed. The demon ancestor portrait suddenly wanted to hit someone. The demon ancestor portrait inside still wanted to hit someone, but outside, Foaming Z was really being hit. 5 days. 5 days. There was a crazy roar. One could see, in the vast wilderness, a middle-aged man in a cassock with a reflective head roared angrily. Are you done yet? However, the only response he got was a sword light that tore a big hole in his cassock. Didn't you want to attack my master before? A clear voice rang out. One could see. A young girl who could fly in the forbidden space wielded a long sword and slashed out one cold sword light after another. Foaming Z hurriedly escaped in a hurry, but he was still hit by the flying sand and stones. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Foaming Z didn't expect that. This seemingly harmless young girl actually had such tyrannical strength. In the beginning, even though Ling Yuhan's bloodline power was strong, he also had the Buddhist body refining technique, so he had a slight upper hand. However, there was a limit to the Buddhist body refining technique, and Ling Yuhan's bloodline power came from a deity. After a while, Foaming Z finally knelt down. As for Shi Kaitian, Chapter 823. Originally, Foaming Z had planned to use Shi Kaitian and the Taoist priest to seize the demon ancestor portrait. The Western region Buddhism might have preserved many of the qualities of the Buddhist scriptures when it was first created. However, as time passed, the Western region Buddhism sect had been weakened. The martial arts world's Buddhism sect had long been infected by the law of the jungle. They were even more blinded by greed than the general public of the martial arts world. The Taoist priest saw through this and left. Just as Foaming Z attacked Ling Yuhan, Shi Kaitian also left quickly. The demon ancestor portrait contained the secret skill of 7 stars, which was a sole secret skill that was not restricted by the restrictive space. Foaming Z had thought that he could defeat the existence of the secret skill of 7 stars. However, he had never thought that his Buddhist cultivation would be useless in the restrictive space. In front of the secret skill of 7 stars, he would be vulnerable. Damn it! 1,000 Buddha palm. Foaming Z roared. He could not bear the humiliation and attacked. The robe on his body was pulled by the strong wind from the palm. It flew up, ignoring gravity. Foaming Z's face also showed a hint of ferocity. No one knew the power of the 1,000 Buddha palm better than he did. Even without vital essence, the 1,000 Buddha palm could easily kill a heavenly ascension realm elite. How could a demon clan girl block it? What? Seeing this, Ling Yuhan's face changed. Her 9 Serenity Saint body and 9-tailed moon fox bloodline were activated at the same time. However, Namo Amitabha, as the 1,000 Buddha palm print was hit, the Buddha statue chanted. The energy in Ling Yuhan's body was dissolved. Ha ha! The 10,000 Buddha palm can construct an extremely small Buddha domain. Within this domain, nothing can be used except for Buddhist Dharma. Your bloodline power is strong, but as long as you can't use it, you're still a weakling. The biggest winner is me, Foaming Z. Foaming Z laughed. However, Ling Yuhan did not look panicked as he had expected. Instead, he was rather calm, and a token had appeared in his hand out of nowhere. That's a communication token? What a joke. In this forbidden space, the communication medallion can only reach a maximum of 25 kilometers. Not only are you useless, but you're also wasting your energy. Now die. Fu Ming laughed. However, Ling Yuhan had already opened her communication token and activated her vital essence. Master, save me. Boom! A terrifying explosion was heard. The 10,000 Buddha palms that were charging over suddenly stopped. Boundless soul energy swept out in all directions, and an extremely terrifying pressure enveloped the entire world. A spatial gate opened. A young man with 3 tiny stars in his hand and eyes that seemed to contain the endless starry sky walked out. I'm almost out, and you're still using this? It's very troublesome to create it once, Tianyang said. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan stuck out her tongue. It's going to be over soon. There's nothing I can do. Seeing the two of them flirting with each other, Foaming Z was instantly enraged. What did these 2 people take him for? 2 brats who were still wet behind the ears. How dare you look down on me? Foaming Z was furious. He activated the 10,000 Buddha palms and attacked again, although he had also sensed the terrifying soul energy that filled the world in an instant. However, he also did not think that such a terrifying power of soul could be possessed by the brat that Ling Yuhan had summoned. I heard that girl say that this brat is her master, that he obtained the demon ancestor portrait. Hee, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only did I get a beautiful girl, but I also got the secret technique of 7 stars. The heavens are on my side. Foaming Z laughed wildly in his heart. At this moment, Tianyang also cast his gaze toward Foaming Z. Oh, you're a Buddhist monk from the Western region? Tianyang said indifferently, and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. The extreme shadow arm guard shone with rays of light, as if to activate his vital essence. However, Tianyong did not intend to use his vital essence now. Since I've cultivated the secret technique of 7 stars, you can try it, Tianyong said indifferently. The next moment, the 3 stars in his hand instantly exploded with soul energy that filled the sky. The illusory, tangible soul energy had almost condensed into a physical form at this moment. The 10,000 Buddha palms that had rushed over earlier seemed to have sunk into a quagmire in the face of this almost physical soul energy. Its speed was greatly reduced, and it could not move forward an inch. Seeing this, Foaming Z's expression changed slightly. You, the power of 3 stars, strangle. You've cultivated the secret technique of 7 stars. A terrifying scream erupted from Foaming Z's mouth. Foaming Z's smug face instantly turned pale. Secret technique of 7 stars. Secret technique of 7 stars. This brat had not only obtained the demon ancestor portrait, but he had also cultivated the secret technique of 7 stars. Looking at the 3 stars in front of him, he had cultivated the power of 3 stars. The 3rd level of the secret technique of 7 stars. No, in this restrictive space, the 3rd level of the secret technique of 7 stars is absolutely invincible. Thoughts flashed through Foaming Z's mind. He bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood essence. Run! Foaming Z roared. He did not even care about the demon ancestor portrait. Only by running away, out of the restrictive space, out of the Dragon Emperor Pagoda, could he survive. Otherwise, under the secret technique of 7 stars, he could only die. Trying to escape? Seeing this, Tianyong raised an eyebrow, then smiled slightly. Can you escape? Puffed. Under the strangle of the star energy, the 10,000 Buddha palms instantly turned into dust. Burning his blood essence, Foaming Z, who was fleeing quickly, suffered a backlash and spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, Tianyong stepped into the void. His expression was extremely indifferent. He brought Ling Yuhan to Foaming Z. You, how can you fly? Why don't you have any ethereal force? Foaming Z said in horror. He burned his blood essence and forced out his ethereal force, but he could only run on the ground. Tianyong did not have any ethereal force fluctuations, but he could step into the sky. Have you heard of crossing the void with one's physical body? Tianyong smiled slightly. The next moment, Dubhe, Merak, and Fekta followed closely behind. With a huge amount of soul energy, they firmly locked onto Foaming Z. A trace of despair appeared on Foaming Z's face, but he still had a glimmer of hope. He said, Sir, I, Foaming Z, have no enmity with you. Before this, I was almost always beaten up. For the sake of the Buddhists of the Western region, there's no need to be so ruthless. Foaming Z said. Hearing this, Tianyong's lips curled into a playful smile. Seeing this, Foaming Z's heart suddenly jumped. There was hope. If you didn't mention the Buddhists of the Western region, it would be fine. If you did, I would want to cut you into pieces even more. Tianyong's voice instantly turned from gentle to cold. The next moment, secret technique of 7 stars. 3rd level, strength of 3 stars. Star Strangle. When you reach the 9 underworlds, remember my name. Tianyong. Tianyong snorted coldly and waved his hand. Streaks of soul power instantly crushed Foaming Z's soul to nothingness. So, that's how it is. Foaming Z let out a low roar, then fell to the ground and died. It was laughable that before he set off, he had been dismissive of the Lord of Buddhism's arrest warrant. He had not even taken a look at Tianyong's appearance. Now, it was this brat that he thought he would not bother to remember. He had to kill him. The 3 great Buddhists, the Lord of Buddhism, Vajrabodhi, and Foaming Z. Chapter 824. Foaming Z was dead. Tianyong looked at Foaming Z, whose body was intact, but whose soul had been completely annihilated. He was shocked. Naturally, he would not be moved by Foaming Z's death. However, the secret technique of 7 stars was indeed powerful. It's only 3 stars, but it can kill a heavenly ascension realm elite like a chicken. Although it doesn't have vital essence, it'll just take a little more effort. Tianyang chuckled. He had made the right choice in coming to the Dragon King's mausoleum. Even the demon ancestor couldn't do it when he had 3 stars. The demon ancestor portrait muttered in Tianyang's dimensional bag. It had witnessed the demon ancestor's power and even had a trace of it in its body. Naturally, it knew the demon ancestor very well. Even so, the demon ancestor portrait had to admit, with Tianyang's current strength, demon ancestor Myriad Star might only be on par with Tianyang in terms of soul power. Tianyang had perfectly cultivated the secret technique of 7 stars. It was as if he had modified the secret technique of 7 stars. He had allowed a mere 3 stars to unleash a power that even 4 stars could not compare to. If the demon ancestor knew, he would probably sigh at his own inferiority. The demon ancestor portrait muttered to itself. The Navagraha dragon tree's voice suddenly rang out. That's right, new master. I remember what's in the Dragon King pagoda. The Navagraha dragon tree said anxiously. The urgency of his words moved Tianyang. Although the Navagraha dragon tree was not as ancient as the demon ancestor portrait, it was still a knowledgeable elite. What was in the Dragon King pagoda that could make the Navagraha dragon tree so excited? The Dragon King pagoda contains the true martial dragon emperor's inheritance. Ha ha! Without vital essence, I, Supreme Crimson Flame, am still the strongest existence in this world. Supreme Crimson Flame laughed loudly. The heaven fire in his hand suddenly erupted with a blazing flame. The next moment, the flame expanded with the wind and swallowed the demonic beast in front of it. Could the Dragon Emperor's pagoda be the true martial Dragon Emperor's treasure trove? There's so many treasures here. Supreme Chi Yin killed the demonic beast in front of him and put away the long sword that the demonic beast was guarding. A smug look appeared on his face. However, it's all thanks to Dragon Emperor Zhenwu. Otherwise, I wouldn't have recovered so easily from the injuries caused by that little bastard. Sovereign Crimson Flame roared. At this moment, his armor was still in tatters. However, those bloody holes had already healed completely. Only his chest had yet to fully recover. After all, that was a sword strike that Tianyang had slashed out with all his strength. Even now, sword energy still lingered around it. If it weren't for Sovereign Qi Yan's tenacious vitality, he would have already died. But even so, the medicinal pills that Premier Scarlet Flame had taken were unable to heal his injuries. Just you wait. I, Paragon Scarlet Flame, will sooner or later cut you into 8 pieces. Use heavenly flames to burn them for 1,000 years and endure the most painful punishment in the world. Autar Crimson Flame roared madly. At this moment, a dazzling light suddenly erupted from the center of the Dragon Emperor Pagoda. The silhouette of a majestic palace slowly appeared in the sky. Roar! Countless dragon roars rang out at this moment. Around the silhouette of the majestic palace, numerous dragon silhouettes appeared. 1,000 dragons greeting. At the same time, within the forbidden spell space, waves of dragon energy appeared and quickly filled the entire Dragon Emperor Pagoda. The density was countless times stronger than the outside world. This is Sovereign Crimson Flame's expression changed. Then, he thought of something and his face suddenly became ecstatic. Could it be the inheritance of Dragon Emperor Zhenwu? In the next moment, Sovereign Crimson Flame did not hesitate and directly rushed toward the silhouette of the palace at his fastest speed. In another place. What's going on? Why did my dragon energy suddenly grow so much stronger? Long Taiji was confused as he felt the sudden increase in dragon energy in his body. In front of him was a demonic beast that had been killed by Long Taiji with a single punch. With Long Taiji's strength, it would take a long time to defeat this demonic beast, not to mention killing it. But now, Long Taiji had killed this powerful demonic beast with a single punch that was comparable to a Heaven Ascension stage LV1. Your Highness, perhaps the records in the ancient books have appeared. At this moment, an old and excited voice rang out. Hearing this, Long Taiji's expression changed slightly, revealing a trace of disbelief. Grand Elder, you mean nothing exists, and dragon energy reigns supreme. 10,000 dragons awaken, and the inheritance descends. The current situation is exactly the same as recorded in the ancient books. The old man beside him said excitedly. Hearing this, Long Taiji's expression changed. At this moment, they also saw the dazzling and majestic palace in the sky. It was different from sovereign Crimson Flame. They also noticed that in front of the palace, there were 9 huge 5-clawed golden dragons. 9 dragons pulling the palace. Dragon Emperor Zhenwu. It's definitely Dragon Emperor Zhenwu. Seeing this scene, even with the East Sea Dragon Palace's Grand Elder's Heaven Ascension stage LV3 cultivation, he could not help but be stunned. 9 dragons pulling the palace, and 10,000 dragons greeting. This was the symbol of Dragon Emperor Zhenwu. In the Sky Continent, no one understood the significance of all this more than the East Sea Dragon Palace. Let's go. Dragon Emperor Zhenwu's inheritance. We must get it, the East Sea Dragon Palace's Grand Elder said. Then, with a terrifying speed that far exceeded sovereign Crimson Flames, he rushed towards the palace with Long Taiji. At the same time, countless experts in the restrictive spell space raised their heads. Dragon Qi awakening and 10,000 dragons greeting. Even if these people did not know about the ancient books of the East Sea Dragon Palace, they should know about this after seeing this strange phenomenon. A treasure had appeared in the restrictive spell space. That's right. When Dragon Emperor Zhenwu passed away and was buried in the Dragon Emperor's mausoleum, I witnessed it. Dragon Emperor Zhenwu was buried under the Dragon Emperor Pagoda. The Dragon Emperor Pagoda is the core of the Dragon Emperor's mausoleum, and the core of the Dragon Emperor Pagoda is Dragon Emperor Zhenwu's coffin. The Navagraha dragon tree's excited voice came. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression turned serious. At this moment, he made a prompt decision and flew towards the center of the Dragon Emperor Pagoda. His physical body could traverse the void, and he could use dragon power. Although his true yuan was limited, these 2 abilities were not weak at all. Therefore, Tianyang could not only fly in the Dragon Emperor Pagoda, but he could also fly with Ling Yuhan. This speed was much faster than the group of experts who were slow to realize that they couldn't fly. In that case, the Dragon Emperor's inheritance is very likely to be in the Dragon Emperor Pagoda before Tianyang could finish. A terrifying dragon roar reverberated through the entire Dragon Emperor Pagoda. Waves of dense dragon qi also swept over like a storm. Tianyang's dragon power instantly skyrocketed, as if he had eaten a miracle elixir. At this moment, the Navagraha dragon tree and the demon ancestor portrait said in unison. Chapter 825. True Martial Dragon Emperor. Hearing this, Tianyang was slightly surprised. In the next moment, he also felt it. A terrifying dragon aura suddenly surged around him. Although the restrictive spell space's formation was still in operation, his true yuan was still sealed. However, the dragon aura had transformed into a terrifying dragon power. It was a qualitative leap. True Martial Dragon Emperor's inheritance has appeared. Tianyang reacted instantly. The Navagraha dragon tree and the demon ancestor portrait nodded. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a terrifying dragon aura. At this moment, as the sun soared over a large mountain, Xiao Chun saw a majestic palace so large that it felt suffocating. It was close at hand. 9 huge dragons were crawling in front of the palace. They emitted a terrifying aura comparable to a Heaven Ascension realm elite. In the surroundings, the dragon roars were filled with respect and fear, even though they were illusory. Although they were vague, they were shocking. 9 dragons pulling the palace, 1,000 dragons greeting. The Dragon Emperor's inheritance has really appeared. The Navagraha dragon tree exclaimed. The demon ancestor portrait was also shocked. True Martial Dragon Emperor had tossed it aside after realizing that it couldn't cultivate the secret skill of 7 stars. The demon ancestor portrait had also set up a few formations to prevent it from being affected by other treasures. Therefore, When true martial dragon emperor passed away, the demon ancestor portrait was still bored in its formation. It had no idea what had happened in the outside world. If Tianyang hadn't brought it out, the demon ancestor portrait wouldn't have known that millions of years had passed since true martial dragon emperor's era. The 9 huge dragons seemed to be moving towards the center of the Dragon Emperor Pagoda. At this moment, Ling Yuhan's eyes were sharp as he spoke. The Navagraha dragon tree and the demon ancestor portrait released their spiritual senses to explore the 9 dragons pulling the palace. The result of the probing was exactly the same as what Ling Yuhan had said. Hee, we're in luck. I didn't expect the Dragon Emperor's inheritance to appear, and it's right where we're going. However, we can't enter the 9 dragons pulling the palace while flying. The Navagraha dragon flame tree chuckled. It had already formed a contract with Tianyang. If Tianyang was strong, the 9 luminaries dragon flame tree would be strong as well. Therefore, for itself and for Tianyang, the 9 luminaries dragon flame tree would spare no effort in helping Tianyang rise. Furthermore, in the previous battle, the Navagraha dragon tree had also realized how powerful Tianyang was. Perhaps, even if Tianyang hadn't been hiding in the dark from the start, taking advantage of the fact that the Vajra Bodhi seed had taken care of the other 2, he would have reaped the benefits of the fisherman's quarrel. They also had the strength to defeat the 3 almighties and snatch him away. Furthermore, the 9 brilliance dragon flame tree was able to sense how powerful exalted Qi Yin was. Yet Tianyang had actually managed to seriously injure him. The young man from the Shadow Clan should have been a powerhouse that dominated this forbidden space. But because he had offended the Tianyang, he had been directly exterminated. There was also the scene in the Fei ancestral portrait, Fu Mingzi, and so on. To the 9 Yao dragon flame tree, Tianyang had long surpassed the category of a genius. He was simply a monster. However, it's hard to guarantee that there will be someone nearer to the center of the Dragon Emperor Pagoda than us. Although we're ahead of them, we still need to hurry. Tianyang didn't sense the ripples in the 9 Yao dragon flame tree's heart. He stepped into the void and sped forward with Ling Yuhan. This 9 dragons pulling a palace was too shocking. Even if some of the powerhouses didn't know what it was, they should know that it was definitely a precious treasure. If it was a precious treasure, then they had a reason to attack. Let's go. Dragon Emperor Pagoda, center, the eye of the forbidden space. It was different from ordinary great arrays. The closer to the edge of the forbidden space, the weaker the forbidden space's effect. At the center, the forbidden power would almost turn into a tangible pressure. Even with the extreme shadow bracer, Tianyang could feel his vital essence flowing at the speed of a turtle in his body. If that young man from the Shadow Clan had rushed to the center of the Dragon Emperor Pagoda without knowing the consequences, he probably wouldn't even have the strength to crawl out. It seems like I'm still too late. Tianyang was in midair, looking at the surrounding powerhouses. His face darkened. For the sake of speed, he had rushed ahead of the 9 dragons, pulling a palace. He didn't expect that there would already be people. 9 Heavens Palace, Grand Elder, Ancient Shrine, 3rd Elder, Penglai Islands, Island Master. Sure, Kaitian and the mysterious moving mountain Taoist were both here. Although they didn't have any vital essence now. Once they attacked, they would be existences that could destroy the heavens and earth. Even without vital essence, these people who stood at the pinnacle of the Tian Shao Great Worlds Pyramid were still terrifying powerhouses. Someone's here? At this moment, 9 Heavens Palace's Grand Elder, an old woman who looked like she had 1 foot in the grave, suddenly changed her expression. Her soul power spread out and enveloped the surroundings in an instant. Ripples caused by the soul power spread out. Some people's expressions changed slightly. However, there were still some who didn't change their expressions. It was as if they hadn't noticed at all. This level of soul power was simply terrifying. The soul ripples spread out in all directions. Even though Tianyang was high up in the sky, he was no exception. However, when the soul ripples touched Tianyang's body, they didn't even cause a trace of vibration. They calmly passed through. This method might be useful against ordinary cultivators. However, in front of Tianyang, who had Wu Zun's soul power, this method was like a child's play. You didn't notice? It spread all around, but there was no discovery. The old woman from Nine Heavens Palace also opened her eyes, revealing a trace of shock. Her spiritual wave detection technique could even detect a cultivator who was stronger than her by a small realm. Her own soul power had reached the terrifying level of the 7th level of the Heaven Ascension realm. As long as it wasn't the peak of the Heaven Ascension realm, in front of her, all demons and ghosts had nowhere to hide. However, what shocked her was that she had clearly sensed it before, but why didn't her spiritual wave detection technique have any feedback now? Even if it ran away immediately, it couldn't be faster than her spiritual wave. The old woman hurriedly looked around, but to her regret, she didn't see anything. Even her spiritual wave detection technique could avoid it. How could it be discovered by the naked eye? If so, she might as well destroy her own cultivation. Granny Lingshan from Nine Heavens Palace? This soul power is really amazing. However, why don't you look up? A clear and bright laughter entered the old woman's ears. Hearing this, the old woman's expression changed greatly. Not only was that person still there, but he could also transmit his voice. She didn't notice him. Up, this is a forbidden space. Even demonic beasts can't be seen above. Could it be that he's playing a trick on me? A trace of doubt flashed in the old woman's eyes. However, in order to find out the origin of that person, she still raised her head. It was fine if she didn't raise her head. When she raised her head, her eyeballs almost popped out. Chapter 826. Above, Granny Lingshan exclaimed. This time, she didn't hide her voice and directly exclaimed out loud. Above! Hearing that, the other cultivators were slightly stunned. What was above? 9 dragons pulling the palace. However, according to their estimation, it would take at least 10 minutes for the 9 dragons pulling a palace to reach this place. Moreover, there was no shadow formed by the huge size of the 9 dragons pulling the palace. With doubts in their hearts, many powerful cultivators looked up. Then, like Granny Lingshan, they were all dumbfounded. Above. Even Ascension Realm cultivators like them could only run on the ground. How could that young man stand in the sky and fly? Traversing the void with his physical body, moving mountain Taoist opened his eyes, and a mysterious light flashed in his eyes as he spoke. Hearing that, everyone's hearts trembled again. Traversing the void with his physical body? Traversing the void with his physical body was not just a Tao Fire Realm cultivator. Tao Fire Realm cultivators could fly in the sky because of their true essence and a shallow understanding of the power of space. However, if a Tao Fire Realm cultivator's true essence was locked, it was up to fate how far they could glide, let alone fly. Those who could fly with their physical body were terrifying people who had broken free from the restrictions of the heavenly Tao to a certain extent. There were probably no more than 5 of them. Even sure, Kai Tian, who was known for his physical strength, could not do it. That's Tianyang? Demon Venerable Tianyang? At this moment, Penglai Island's island master suddenly let out a cry of surprise. Before entering the Dragon Emperor Pagoda, he had seen Tianyang and had some impression of Tianyang. However, it was only a little. It was because Tianyang had severely injured Cardinal Inferno Prime. In this restrictive spell space, all methods that required true essence could not be used. Even if Tianyang had some miraculous methods that could severely injure Cardinal Inferno Prime, most of them were useless in the restrictive spell space. Penglai Island's island master did not care much. In the end, the kid that he did not care about before appeared in front of them in such a magnificent way. Taoist priest, is it really possible to travel through the void with one's physical body? Some people found it hard to imagine that crossing the void with one's physical body was equivalent to breaking through the heavenly Tao to a certain extent. Was this level of divine power really something a 20-year-old guy could achieve? Yes, the Eastern Sea's old Dragon King. Moving Mountain Taoist said again. At this moment, Granny Lingshan's expression changed slightly as she glared at Tianyang. You dodged my psychic wave detection technique. Hearing this, the crowd went into an uproar. Tianyang, who had been communicating with the demon ancestor portrait, also came back to his senses. He saw Granny Lingshan right away. Dodge? Tianyang was a little surprised. I didn't dodge. Before Granny Lingshan could say anything, the third elder of the ancient god temple could not help but snicker. If he didn't hide, how could Granny Lingshan not detect him? Although your strength is extraordinary, don't be too arrogant. Granny Lingshan's soul power is the strongest in the world. It has reached LV7 of the reaching heaven realm, comparable to the Grand Elder. The psychic wave detection technique is a unique secret technique that even the Grand Elder praised. Even the Grand Elder could not dodge it. Kid, it's good to be talented, but you have to control your talent. The third elder of the ancient god temple sneered. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression did not change. His lips curled into a smile as he looked at the third elder of the ancient god temple. What? You finally chased the golden skeletal dragons away? TSK. You must have spent a lot of energy. And the mass grave. Oh, right, there are no enemies in the mass grave. Of course, there are no treasures either. Tianyang chuckled. Hearing this, the third elder of the ancient god temple who had just mocked Tianyang turned pale. Being trapped by more than 190 golden skeletal dragons at the entrance of the Dragon Emperor's mausoleum for a whole week by Tianyang's formation was a humiliation to the third elder of the ancient god temple. Now that Tianyang had mentioned it, it was not just a matter of digging up the scars, but also adding some cumin to it. Oh, right. And the number one genius of the ancient god temple, Gu Wushuang, what happened? Don't tell me you used him as a shield? Tianyang laughed again. Hearing this, the third elder of the ancient god temple's face turned pale. How did this guy know? However, seeing Tianyang's mocking smile, the third elder of the ancient god temple came to his senses. This guy was toying with him. How dare you treat me like this? You're courting death. The third elder of the ancient god temple roared and charged forward. He had heard that Tianyang had once slain the 3 Shadow Mouse brothers of the Shadow Clan in the unmarked burial mounds. However, the 3 Shadow Mouse brothers were nothing in front of the third elder of the ancient god temple. As for what the island master of Penglai Island said, he had seriously injured Autar Chi Yin. The third elder of the ancient god temple snorted disdainfully. How could that be? Autar Chi Yin was the strongest person in the Scarlet Flame sect, one of the strongest people in the continent. How could someone of that level be seriously injured by a kid who hadn't even grown out his hair yet? Most likely, Tianyang had bumped into Autar Chi Yin, who had been injured while fighting for a treasure. That was why the rumor had become so exaggerated. In the end, the third elder of the ancient god temple looked down on Tianyang. Ancient god cross / The third elder of the ancient god temple roared, and his body shone with light that filled the sky. The ancient god temple cultivated a martial technique like the ancient god body, so was naturally very good at tempering one's physical body. Therefore, the third elder of the ancient god temple was not afraid of Tianyang at all. The so-called physical body traversing the void of... If this was said by the first elder of the ancient god temple, he might believe it. But an unknown Taoist wanted to fool him. Outside, you had the help of the Dragon Bone Battle Formation, but now, you have nothing. Die for me. The third elder of the ancient god temple roared, and his body shone with golden light as if he had manifested an ancient giant god. The totem of the ancient god temple, the ancient god. With the support of the ancient god temple's totem, the light on the third elder of the ancient god temple became even stronger. He punched out, and it turned into a cross that shattered the void. Boom! Seeing this, the island master of Penglai Island, Granny Lingshan of the Empyrean Palace, and Sure Kaikian's expressions changed. There is such power in the restrictive spell space. Sure Kaikian muttered to himself, and a serious look flashed across his eyes. The other experts also felt the same. No one thought that Tianyang could survive. In the end, the physical body traversing the void was just the moving mountain Taoist words. What if there were some treasures? This was human nature. If a person who was supposed to be much weaker than them showed achievements that far surpassed them, those people would madly find reasons to prove that the other party was not as good as them. But stars strangle. Ah, a mouthful of blood spurted out, and an old figure flew out in a dazzling starlight. Mouthful after mouthful of blood stained his robe and splashed on the wasteland. Boom! The third elder of the ancient god temple slammed into the ground, causing the surrounding ground to collapse. In the past, such power would have caused a commotion. However, the surroundings were deathly silent. One move. Chapter 827. With one blow, the third elder of the ancient god temple was dead. If the third elder of the ancient god temple had been severely injured after breaking through the dragon bone battle formation and was defeated by Tianyang, that would be fine. But the third elder of the ancient god temple was full of energy and his face was ruddy. It was obvious that he had obtained some treasure. How could he have been injured at all, except for the fact that he was in the forbidden space and could not use his vital core? The third elder of the ancient god temple was in his prime. But the third elder of the ancient god temple was in his prime. But he was defeated by a brat in one blow. How is that possible? Everyone present, except for Moving Mountain Taoist and Sure Kaitian, was in disbelief. That was not a nobody on the street, but the top expert of the continent, the third elder of the ancient god temple. How could such a powerful expert be defeated by Tianyang? It's soul power. Just how strong is your soul force? At this moment, a roar of disbelief was heard. Granny Lingshan's body trembled as she pointed at Tianyang. Her face was extremely pale. Her soul power was the strongest among all the experts present. She was also proficient in the spiritual wave detection technique. Her perception of soul power was far superior to everyone present. But it was also because of this. That was why Granny Lingshan was so shocked. If it wasn't for the third elder of the ancient god temple's life-saving trump card, I'm afraid that move would have killed him 1,000 times over. Granny Lingshan murmured to herself. She looked at the third elder of the ancient god temple without any surprise. Instead, she felt very lucky for him. At that moment, the soul power that exploded from Tianyang's body. It almost tore Granny Lingshan's exposed spiritual waves into pieces. Even the strongest and most tenacious spiritual waves could not escape the fate of being destroyed. However, this was only the aftermath. Humph! Just as Granny Lingshan's heart was in turmoil, a cold snort was heard. Juniors nowadays really don't know how to respect the old and cherish the young. The third elder of the ancient god temple has a high status. How dare you seriously injure him? Now, I'll punish you on behalf of the ancient god temple. A loud roar was heard, and a terrifying heat was emitted. Seeing this, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. The black flame Taoist, he threw it behind him. Boom! One black and one white, the two flames collided. At this moment, Tianyang sneered. Sovereign red flame Taoist, you're finally here. This newcomer was Sovereign Crimson Flame, spiritual fire. Seeing Heavenly Sun display the true flames of annihilation with a wave of his hand, Supreme Qi Yan's pupil shrank, his expression turning to one of disdain. I don't know where this trash spiritual fire came from, but it dares to go against my heavenly fire? Last time, you were lucky enough to injure me. Now, I'll give you the death penalty. Supreme Qi Yan coldly snorted. In the next moment, terrifying flames soared into the sky, turning into a shocking wave of fire that swept toward the Heavenly Sun. Heavenly Sun's true annihilation flames were instantly enveloped in a sea of fire. Sovereign God, trash, spiritual fire? There was no anger on Tianyang's face when he heard that. Instead, he smiled faintly. Then, I'll let you experience the power of a trash spiritual fire. His fingers moved rhythmically. The flame Taoist operated under Tianyang's control. The flame Taoist surged with the wind. The enormous wave of black fire surged upwards in this sea of heavenly flames. It was like a terrifying dragon that let out a heaven-shaking roar. What? Sovereign red flame Taoist expression changed drastically. The heavenly flame was already one of the strongest spiritual fires in the Tianxiao Great World. Unless there was another flame passed down from ancient times, it was absolutely invincible. However, what was the situation with Tianyang's black flame? He had never heard of it. Could it be that this guy obtained an ancient spiritual fire that had never been discovered before? Sovereign Red Flame Taoist controlled the heavenly flame Taoist. His mind was spinning. Greed flashed across his eyes. Indeed, only one spiritual fire could be owned. However, that was for one person. Behind Sovereign Red Flame was the huge Scarlet Flame sect. The heavenly flame Taoist that Sovereign Red Flame controlled was the only inherited spiritual fire of the Scarlet Flame sect. If there was another level 6 spiritual fire that was not weaker than the heavenly flame Taoist, then the power of the Scarlet Flame sect would definitely skyrocket. Perhaps they would no longer have to act according to the ancient shrine's wishes. Oof. Heavenly Flame Explosion. With that thought, Sovereign Red Flame's eyes flashed with murderous intent. His soul power burst out and charged toward Tianyang. However, Heavenly Yang merely smiled indifferently when he saw this. 10,000 Elephant Divine Flame. 10,000 Elephant Destruction. Boom! The black and white flames collided violently. All the shadows in the surroundings were illuminated by the sudden explosion of intense light. The surrounding air also seemed to be boiling. The raging flames seemed to want to burn this part of the world dry. As countless powerhouses watched the battle between Supreme Crimson Flame and Heavenly Sun, their hearts were filled with shock and awe. It was too terrifying. Sovereign Red Flame was still okay. After all, he had been famous for 1,000 years. With that kind of foundation, even if he surpassed the great elder of the ancient shrine, they would not feel much. However, Tianyang was only a young man who was not even 100 years old. He had only been famous for a short 5 or 6 years. Compared to Sovereign Red Flame, the difference was too great. But now, Tianyang was violently colliding with Sovereign Red Flame. He actually blocked my Heavenly Flame Taoist? This kid seems to be stronger than before. Sovereign Red Flame's expression changed. Looking at Tianyang, who was still calm in front of him, his expression turned gloomy. How long had it been since the battle between him and Tianyang? Most likely, it wouldn't even be a month. But Tianyang's strength had once again crossed a level in this short month. This kid can't be left alive. Sovereign Red Flame's heart flashed with murderous intent. At this moment, a dragon's roar suddenly rang out. Streams of dragon auras burst out as a huge shadow loomed over the crowd. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. The great void sword embryo appeared in his hand. With a slash, he took advantage of the momentum to retreat. And the crowd had no time to pay attention to the battle between Tianyang and Sovereign Red Flame. They all raised their heads and looked at the sky. 9 gigantic dragons that had existed since time immemorial were slowly descending with a majestic divine palace in tow. And around the palace, one by one, powerhouses follow behind. There were many figures. Shadow Clan, Movie Emperor Tian. Spirit Clan, Yingling. Ghost Clan, Guili. Sword Saint Sect, Li Tianjiao. Some powerhouses recognized the people around the 9 dragons pulling the palace and exclaimed one after another. Seeing this, Tianyang's expression also changed slightly. Kid, I'll let you go this time. Wait until we enter the Dragon Palace. I'll definitely kill you. Sovereign Red Flame's voice came. However, Tianyang did not even turn his head and directly replied. Someone has said this before, and at this moment, the 9 dragons let out a loud dragon's roar. Subsequently, Chapter 828. In an instant, countless strong men arrived. There were only dozens of strong men in the reaching heaven realm who had entered the tomb of the Dragon King. They were scattered in the tomb of the Dragon King, which was as large as a small world. However, at this moment, the strongest among the dozens of strong men, all of them came here. Hee. Boy, we meet again. Ghostly was surrounded by dark purple ghost chi. His purple robe seemed to have changed. His purple mask revealed a deep and terrifying soul fire as he looked at Tianyang. His aura seemed to be a little stronger than before he had entered the tomb of the Dragon King. I've already said that if you enter the tomb of the Dragon King and meet me, you'll die. If you don't want to die, you'd better run away. Ha ha ha. The inheritance of the Dragon Emperor of true martial is not something trash like you can touch. Ghostly laughed in a shrill voice, his face full of ridicule. In the tomb of the Dragon King, he had obtained a robe whose defensive power was comparable to an upper-grade spiritual weapon. Ghostly's purple robe was just made of ordinary cloth. If he replaced this robe that could change color, Ghostly's strength would rise to a new level. My all-ghost to the burial zone has been thirsty for a long time. Ghostly laughed. Hearing that, Tianyang's face didn't change at all. Instead, he revealed a cold smile. A guy who can't even protect himself is qualified to threaten others. Then, Tianyang flicked his sleeves and left. He didn't take Ghostly seriously at all. Seeing that, Ghostly's eyes suddenly became terrifying. He released his killing intent, which almost froze the air that had been evaporated by the battle. Boy, how dare you? You're still so arrogant. Wait and see. When you enter the Dragon Palace, it'll be your death. Ghostly sneered. Then, he turned into a purple light and came to the Dragon Palace. The Dragon Palace hadn't been opened yet. Ha ha. Brother, you're also a human. How come you're fighting with Ghostly? At this moment, a loud laugh came from his side. Tianyang turned his head to look. A young man who looked to be in his 20s or 30s laughed. Li Qianjiao, the number 1 genius of the Sword Saint sect and the number 2 genius of the Sword Principle in the Central Region. Who was the number 1 Sword Dao genius? Was there even need to ask? Naturally, it was the Sword King Tianyang. It's been a long time, Tianyang said indifferently. Hearing this, Li Tianjiao, who was about to continue the conversation, was suddenly stuck. However, he quickly reacted and smiled. May I know your name? To be able to fight against the number 1 expert of the Ghost Clan, you are definitely not an ordinary person. I am the number 1 genius of the Sword Saint sect, Li Tianjiao. Li Tianjiao said proudly. Although the Sword Saint sect was only at the bottom of the martial Dao sacred grounds, it was still very powerful. However, to mortals, it was still a colossus among colossi. While the young man before him was powerful, he didn't seem to have the backing of any power. He didn't have the disposition of a disciple of a major power at all. Li Tianjiao wanted to use his identity as the strongest disciple of the Sword Saint sect to show off in front of Tianyang. Tianyang said. Then, he glanced at Li Tianjiao and was a little surprised. A 9th tier C of Soul Realm martial artist came here to compete for the Dragon Emperor's inheritance with a group of reaching heaven realm martial artists? Tianyang was also a little surprised. A 9th tier C of Soul Realm martial artist might be able to dominate a region in the outside world. However, in the Dragon Emperor's mausoleum, he was undoubtedly the cannon fodder of cannon fodder. Ling Yuhan was strong enough. She could even beat Fu Mingzi in the Dragon Emperor Pagoda. However, Tianyang was unwilling to let her out. There were simply too many experts here. There were so many of them that even Heavenly Sun found it difficult to deal with them. This Li Tianjiao actually dared to come here with a 9th tier C of Soul Realm martial artist. Could it be that he had an inheritance in his body like Tang Fengling of the 9th Heaven Palace? How do you know I'm at the 9th tier of C of Soul Realm? However, hearing this, Li Tianjiao's face looked as if he had seen a ghost. He was shocked. This was the forbidden space. No one could emit true Yuan aura from their bodies. How could this guy see through his cultivation? Hearing this, Tianyang didn't speak. He had the secret technique of 7 stars. It could be said that through the medium of the secret technique of 7 stars, as long as he didn't use it to raise his realm, Wu Zun's soul power could be used however he wanted. Even if it was like the battle with the Demon Emperor in the Earthly Emperor Small World, it could be activated for a longer period of time. With a secret technique of this level, how could he not see through a 9th tier C of Soul Realm martial artist cultivation? Wait, you said, this is the Dragon Emperor's inheritance. However, Li Tianjiao noticed Tianyang's last four words in the next moment. The expression on his face gradually stiffened. Then, it turned into an expression as if he had seen a god. His face was full of horror. 9 dragons pulling the palace, dragon chi awakening, 1,000 dragons greeting, and dragon emperor's pressure. Could it be that you didn't notice it? Tianyang said. Hearing this, Li Tianjiao's expression instantly froze. Was it really the dragon emperor's inheritance? Li Tianjiao stiffened his neck and turned his head to look around. Ghost Clan's strongest Gui Li, Scarlet Flame Sect's Scarlet Flame Supreme, Shadow Clan's Shadow Di Tian, Spirit Clan's Ing Ling, 9 Heaven Palace's Granny Ling Shan, East Sea Dragon Palace's Supreme Elder. These experts, if taken out, were all terrifying almighties who could shake mountains and rivers with a stomp of their feet. But now they were all gathered here, in the Dragon Emperor's tomb. Besides the Dragon Emperor's inheritance, there was nothing else that could be so attractive. It's really like this. Li Tianjiao's voice was a bit mechanical. He turned his head and looked at Tianyang. Wait, you just said that you're called Tianyang? Demon Venerable. Tianyang? Li Tianjiao said stiffly. Tianyang nodded. Goodbye, I'll take my leave now. Li Tianjiao cupped his hands. The next moment, he directly activated his movement technique and ran away until even his shadow could not be seen. Unless it was someone who really had terrifying strength, who would dare to stay here now? Wasn't this courting death? His cultivation was at the 9th level of Sea of Soul Realm. In front of these almighties, he was afraid that they could kill him with a wave of their hands. He originally thought that this place was just the birth of a treasure. Previously, when he followed the Dragon Palace, he did not discover that there were countless experts not far away from him. With his soul power at the 9th level of Sea of Soul Realm, it would be strange if he could perceive those experts who belonged to the top of the reaching heaven realm. When he arrived here, Li Tianjiao did not understand the situation for a while. It was not until Tianyang spoke that he understood. Of course, he would run as far as he could, and as fast as he could. He was just an ordinary young genius who got a Dragon Emperor's token by luck and came here to freeload. How would he dare to get involved in this storm? Seeing this, Tianyang couldn't help but laugh. This Li Tianjiao was sensible. The 9th level of Sea of Soul Realm was indeed nothing in this place. Instead of being blinded by the Dragon Emperor's inheritance and blindly courting death, it was better to run away early and look for other opportunities. However, Li Tianjiao's arrival and departure did not attract the attention of others. At this moment, the 9 dragons pulling the palace had already released tens of thousands of rays of light. A tyrannical pressure was released. Everyone present, except for Qian Supreme, Granny Ling Shan, Gui Li, Ing Ling, Film Emperor Tian, and Tianyang, bowed slightly. The Dragon Emperor's might. At this moment, several ancient characters flew out from the Dragon Gate. Every word was made up of strong and powerful strokes that looked like silver hooks and iron paintings. They condensed in midair and illuminated the heavens. The ancient characters were mysterious and difficult to understand. However, when they saw these 4 characters, everyone understood the meaning. Chapter 829. True Martial, Dragon Palace. Someone recognized the 4 ancient words and muttered to himself. The others also revealed a trace of shock on their faces. Not everyone knew that this was the true martial dragon emperor's inheritance. Most of the experts were attracted by the 9 dragons pulling the palace and the 10,000 dragons bowing to the Dragon Palace. They thought that a treasure had appeared. However, to these experts, the Dragon Emperor's inheritance was also a treasure among treasures. The true martial Dragon Emperor's inheritance is indeed here. The East Sea Dragon Palace's supreme elder smiled as he sensed the true martial Dragon Palace from afar. Although he did not sense anything, he still smiled calmly. The true martial Dragon Emperor's favorite treasure is the true martial Dragon Palace. Now that the true martial Dragon Palace has appeared here, the true martial Dragon Emperor's treasure must be inside. The most likely thing is the true martial Dragon Emperor's inheritance. I'm equivalent to the dragon race. Apart from the East Sea Dragon Palace, Who else can obtain the true martial dragon emperor's inheritance? The East Sea Dragon Palace's supreme elder smiled. At this moment, the true martial dragon palace suddenly shone brightly as the dragon emperor's aura was released. The four ancient words that flew out slowly dissipated. In the next moment, the huge true martial dragon palace's gate bloomed with Xingguang. A gigantic golden dragon gate appeared above the palace gate. Then, it left the palace gate and flew out slowly. Soon, a huge dragon gate appeared in front of the true martial dragon palace. Tianyang's eyes narrowed as he looked at the huge dragon gate in front of him. At this moment, the Navagraha dragon tree's voice sounded. This is the true martial dragon palace's test. The true martial dragon emperor used this method when he gave the dragon race an opportunity. This dragon gate was created by Dragon Emperor True Martial based on the legendary Dragon Gate. It's called the Dragon Gate Sky Tablet. Only those who leave a good result on the Dragon Gate tablet will be able to enter the true martial dragon palace, said the Navagraha dragon tree. Tianyang nodded slightly when he heard that. In the legends, there was a dragon gate that stood between the sky and the earth. Countless flood dragons and fishes. Only by crossing the dragon gate would they be able to transform into a dragon and become one of the dragons that soared through the 9 heavens. The true martial dragon palace clearly imitated this legend. At this moment, someone in the crowd could no longer bear it. Since no one is willing to take the lead, I shall enter the dragon palace first and obtain the legacy of the dragon emperor. A bare-chested man walked towards the door, revealing bronze-colored muscles that were as hard as steel. He carried a huge axe that was as wide as several people on his shoulder. He's a famous body refining and chi refining loose cultivator. Tyrant King. I didn't expect him to come to the tomb of the Dragon King. Someone in the crowd recognized the identity of this person and cried out in surprise. Upon hearing this, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. Tianyang had also heard of the Tyrant King. He was one of the most famous independent cultivators in Sky Cloud's continent. Although his cultivation was only at Heaven Ascension Stage LV3, due to his body refining and chi refining loose cultivator, the power he displayed was not inferior to a Heaven Ascension Stage LV4 powerhouse. Although I don't know what this Dragon Gate is, break it for me. Earth rank upper martial skill, Tyrant Flame Axe. The Tyrant King roared angrily, and the muscles on his body suddenly bulged with blue veins. This place was a restricted space. Therefore, the Tyrant King could not use his true origin. However, it was also because of this that the Tyrant King's powerful physical strength could be displayed to the extreme. Billowing hot aura exploded from the Tyrant King's body and spread rapidly to the surroundings. A ball of crimson flame also burned on the Tyrant King's axe. Third stage, spiritual fire, wild flame, lion fire. Wrapped in an incomparably terrifying physical strength, the Tyrant King fiercely struck. Boom! The axe heavily chopped on the invisible Dragon Gate. The Dragon Gate immediately burst into rays of golden light. Rays of dragon chi were released, and in the blink of an eye, the wild flame lion fire on the Tyrant King's axe suddenly disappeared. In the next moment, a tyrannical wind burst out and directly blew the Tyrant King away. Puffed. The Tyrant King spat out a mouthful of blood and crashed heavily on the ground. The giant axe in his hand, which was a superior spiritual weapon, also dimmed. Obviously, the Tyrant King's previous attack on the Dragon Gate had not succeeded. The Dragon Gate is not to be crossed like this. At this moment, the Supreme Elder of the East Sea Dragon Palace walked out and shook his head when he saw the Tyrant King, who had been sent flying in an instant. According to the ancient records of the East Sea Dragon Palace, this Dragon Gate was used by the true martial Dragon Emperor to test the Dragon Tribe. It's called the Dragon Gate Tablet. This Dragon Gate is not used to attack, but to test the height of the Dragon Gate, said the Supreme Elder of the East Sea Dragon Palace. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. Jumping through the Dragon Gate? Could it be that ancient legend? Yes, said the Supreme Elder of the East Sea Dragon Palace. If you want to pass this Dragon Gate tablet, you have to jump through the Dragon Gate. And to jump through the Dragon Gate, you have to leave a mark on the Dragon Gate tablet while jumping, explained the Supreme Elder of the East Sea Dragon Palace. Hearing this, everyone immediately narrowed their eyes and looked at the Dragon Gate tablet that the Tyrant King had attacked previously. Indeed, there was a mark on it. An almost undetectable mark appeared. Hearing this, the Tyrant King, who had just gotten up, was so depressed that he almost vomited blood. If you knew the rules, you should have said so earlier. He had already been sent flying, so what was the matter with this guy speaking now? If not for the fact that the Dragon Chi of the Dragon Gate tablet was not very offensive, he would not have been able to obtain the Dragon Emperor's inheritance. Then, how high do you have to jump and how deep is the mark to pass? Someone asked. Tianyang's heart skipped a beat, and he asked the Navagraha Dragon Flame Tree. However, both the Navagraha Dragon Flame Tree and the Supreme Elder of the East Sea Dragon Palace knew nothing about it. The ancient records of the East Sea Dragon Palace were not very detailed. As for the Navagraha Dragon Flame Tree, he had never asked the true Martial Dragon Emperor. He only knew that the true Martial Dragon Palace had a Dragon Gate tablet. No matter what the requirements of the Dragon Gate tablet are, I just have to do my best. You might not be able to, but I definitely can. At that moment, an arrogant voice sounded. Hearing this voice, everyone's curiosity was piqued. Who was so confident? They all looked at that person. A young man walked out of the crowd. He had an arrogant face and good facial features. He was wearing a long black robe. There was a shadow, energy, slowly circling in his hand, causing everyone's expression to change. As for Tianyang, he also recognized it. Wasn't he the one who had killed 4 members of the same clan?